The pharmacist asked if I was sure about the refill. Someone had already picked up my prescription that morning using my ID. Every month, same routine. Drive to the Walgreens on Briar Lane, wait in the little line by the pharmacy counter, give my name and date of birth, pick up my Lexapro, drive home. I'd been doing it for almost 2 years. Same pharmacy, same staff, same prescription. It was the most boring errand in my life, and I was fine. Boring was the whole point of the medication. I'm Jay, by the way, 31 at the time this happened. I'd been on Lexapro since I was 29. Generalized anxiety, nothing dramatic, just the kind of low-level hum that makes everything feel slightly harder than it should. The medication helped, took the edge off, made it so I could sleep without my brain running through every worst-case scenario like a highlight reel. I wasn't ashamed of it, but I also didn't broadcast it. My doctor knew, the pharmacy knew, and that was about it. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a converted house. Older building, creaky stairs, a landlord who lived out of state and only called when rent was late. The neighborhood was fine, working class, a little rundown, but safe enough. I could walk to the grocery store, and there was a bar on the corner where I'd grab a beer sometimes on Fridays. I worked as a claims adjuster for an insurance company, mostly remote, which meant I spent a lot of time in that apartment with my laptop and a pot of coffee going stale on the counter. It was February, the kind of gray, wet month where it rains for days and you forget what the sun looks like. I remember that because the windshield wipers were going the whole drive to Walgreens. And I almost didn't go that day. Almost told myself I'd pick it up tomorrow. I had a few pills left, could stretch it another day. But I was already dressed, already in the car. The pharmacy closed early on Sundays. So I went. The woman behind the counter was Patrice. She'd worked there as long as I'd been coming in. Mid-50s, glasses, one of those people who remembered your name without checking the computer. She smiled when I walked up, already turning toward the shelf behind her. "Hey, Jay, picking up?" "Yeah, the usual." She typed something, paused, typed something else. Then she looked at me over her glasses with an expression I'd never seen from her before. Not concern exactly, but something close to it. Confusion, maybe. "You sure you need a refill?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm almost out. Why?" "Because someone already picked this up this morning." I just stood there. The rain was loud against the front windows of the store, filling the silence while I tried to make sense of what she'd just said. Someone picked up my prescription. My prescription. The one with my name on it, tied to my doctor, tied to my insurance, tied to me. "That's not possible," I said. "I didn't pick it up." Patrice turned the monitor slightly so I could see it. There it was. My name, my date of birth, my prescription number. Marked as picked up at 9:47 a.m. Status, dispensed. Signature on file. "They had your ID," she said carefully. Whoever it was, they presented identification and signed for it. Our system logged it as a completed pickup. I could feel something cold spreading through my chest, starting behind my sternum and radiating outward. Not panic, not yet. More like the moment right before panic, when your body knows something is very wrong, but your brain is still trying to catch up. "What did they look like?" I asked. Patrice shook her head. "I wasn't on this morning. Let me check who was." She disappeared into the back for a minute, then came back with a younger guy. Tyler, I think his name was. Early 20s, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Do you remember someone picking up a prescription for Jay Medina this morning?" Patrice asked him. Tyler thought about it. "Yeah, I think so. Guy came in right when we opened, had his ID, gave his date of birth, everything checked out, normal pickup." "What did he look like?" I asked again. Tyler shrugged. "I don't know, man. Average? Brown hair, I think. Maybe your height?" He had a hat on. It was a busy morning. Average, brown hair, my height, a hat. That was all I had. Some man had walked into my pharmacy with an ID that said he was me, signed my name, taken my medication, and walked out. And the only description I'd ever get was average. Patrice was watching me carefully. "Jay, I think you should call the police. And your doctor. If someone has a copy of your ID and knows your prescription, that's..." She stopped herself. "That's not good." I thanked her and walked back to my car. Sat in the parking lot with the engine running and the wipers going, rain sliding down the windshield and sheets, and tried to think. Someone had my name, my date of birth, a physical ID, good enough to fool a pharmacist. They knew what pharmacy I used, what medication I took, what time the pharmacy opened. They knew things about me that even most of my friends didn't know. I pulled out my phone to call the police and realized my hands were shaking. Not a lot, just a fine tremor, barely visible. But I felt it. That quiet vibration in my fingers that I used to get before the Lexapro, back when the anxiety ran everything. Sitting in that parking lot, listening to the rain hammer my car, I had the strangest thought. Whoever this person was, they were out there right now, with a bottle of pills that were supposed to be keeping me steady. They had my medication. They had my name. And I had nothing. Not even a face to be afraid of. The cop who took my report at the station didn't seem to know what to do with me. He kept typing and stopping, like the form he was filling out didn't have a box for "someone impersonated me at a pharmacy." He asked if anything had been stolen, like money, a car, something tangible. When I said no, just my medication, he looked at me with this expression that was halfway between sympathy and impatience. "So someone picked up your pills," he said. "Someone used a fake ID with my name on it to pick up a controlled substance under my insurance." I didn't mean to sound sharp, but I could hear it in my own voice. The anxiety was already climbing, and I was running on fumes without the Lexapro. He typed some more, gave me a case number, told me they'd follow up with the pharmacy, and that I should call my insurance company and my prescribing doctor. Standard advice, delivered in a standard tone, and I left the station feeling like I'd just reported a stolen bicycle. My doctor's office was closed on Sundays, so I called first thing Monday morning. Talked to the receptionist, explained the situation, got transferred to the office manager, explained it again. She pulled up my file and went quiet for a few seconds too long. "Mr. Medina, did you call last week to request your records be sent to a new provider?" Number one, I did not. "We received a call on Wednesday from someone identifying themselves as you. They asked us to fax your complete medical records to a Dr. Rains at a practice in Milford. We verified the date of birth and the last four of the social, and it matched, so we processed the request. I don't know a Dr. Rains. I've never been to Milford. And whoever called my doctor's office last Wednesday had my social security number, or at least the last 4 digits of it." The office manager's voice shifted. She sounded careful now, the way people sound when they realize they might have made a mistake that matters. She said she'd flag my file immediately, put a verbal password on any future requests, and give me the fax number they'd sent the records to. She apologized 3 times. I barely heard her. My complete medical records. Everything. Diagnosis history, prescriptions past and present, therapy notes, insurance information, emergency contacts. All of it. Faxed to a number I didn't recognize, in a town I'd never visited, to a doctor who might not even be real. I sat at my kitchen table with the rain streaking down the window and tried to make a list of everything this person now had. My name, my date of birth, my address, probably, my social security number, at least partially, my medical history, my current medication and dosage, my pharmacy location, my insurance details, the name of my doctor. That list kept growing the more I thought about it. Each piece connected to the next, and each one they had made the next one easier to get. It was like watching someone pick a lock, one pin at a time, quiet and patient, until the whole thing swung open. The insurance company confirmed what I already suspected. Someone had called them too, 4 days before the pharmacy pickup, and requested a replacement insurance card be mailed to a different address. The address was an apartment in Milford, same town as the fake doctor. The card had been mailed, singed, sealed, delivered. Whoever this was had a physical copy of my insurance card with my name, my member ID, my group number. Combined with the fake driver's license, they could walk into any pharmacy in the state and be me. I called the Milford apartment. It was a month-to-month rental, one of those furnished places that caters to traveling workers and people between leases. The woman who answered said she couldn't give me tenant information. When I told her someone was using my identity to rent the unit, she paused for a long time and then said I'd need to talk to the property manager, who wasn't available until Thursday. Thursday. 4 days. 4 more days of someone living in an apartment under my name, carrying my insurance card, holding a bottle with my prescription on the label. Maybe sitting in some doctor's office right now, reading through my therapy notes and learning every vulnerable thing I'd ever said out loud in a room I thought was private. That was the part that got to me the most. Not the financial stuff, not the bureaucratic nightmare, not even the fake ID. It was the therapy notes. I'd spent 2 years sitting across from my therapist, talking about things I'd never told anyone. The anxiety, the panic attacks in college, the relationship that almost broke me, the nights I'd lie awake cataloging every mistake I'd ever made. That was supposed to be sacred. That was supposed to be the one place where I could be completely honest without consequences. And now a stranger had all of it. I stopped sleeping well after that. The apartment felt different. Same walls, same furniture, same dripping faucet in the bathroom I kept meaning to fix. But the air had changed. Every sound felt louder at night. The rain on the roof, which I used to find calming, just reminded me that it was dark outside and anyone could be standing in it. I started leaving the bathroom light on when I went to bed, started checking the peephole every time I heard footsteps on the stairs. My upstairs neighbor came home at midnight on Tuesday, and I stood behind my door with my phone in my hand for 10 minutes before my heart rate came back down. I wasn't taking my medication because I didn't have it. The doctor called in a new prescription to a different pharmacy across town, with a note on the file that required photo ID verification and a security question. But it would take 2 days to process. 2 days without the thing that kept my brain from eating itself alive. By Wednesday, I was a mess. Jumping at sounds, checking locks compulsively, scrolling through my bank statements every hour, looking for charges I didn't make. I called the detective assigned to my case. There was a detective now, which should have felt like progress, but mostly just felt like confirmation that this was real and serious and not going away. He told me they'd contacted the pharmacy's security camera vendor to pull footage from Saturday morning. They were also looking into the Milford apartment and the fax number used at my doctor's office. He said these things take time. Everything took time. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was doing this had plenty of it. The detective called Thursday afternoon. His name was Briggs, and up until that point he'd been measured and calm in a way that felt more like procedure than reassurance. But something in his voice was different this time, tighter. "We pulled the pharmacy footage," he said. "I'd like you to come down and take a look." I drove to the station in the rain. It was the kind of downpour where the road disappears under a sheet of water and every set of headlights becomes a smear of white. I gripped the steering wheel and thought about turning around. Part of me, the part the Lexapro usually kept quiet, didn't want to see the footage, didn't want a face attached to this. A faceless threat was terrifying, but at least it was abstract. A face would make it permanent. A face would follow me into every room for the rest of my life. Briggs had the footage pulled up on a monitor in a small office that smelled like burnt coffee. He hit play without much preamble. The angle was from behind the pharmacy counter, looking out toward the store. 9:43 a.m., Saturday morning. The pharmacy had just opened. A man walked up to the counter, unhurried, relaxed, hands in the pockets of a dark green jacket. He was wearing a baseball cap, but it wasn't pulled down low like someone trying to hide. It sat normally on his head, like he'd grabbed it on his way out the door. Brown hair underneath, average build. He stepped up, said something to Tyler behind the counter, pulled out a wallet, handed over an ID. Tyler glanced at it, typed something into the system, turned around, pulled a white pharmacy bag off the shelf, had the man sign the electronic pad. The whole exchange took maybe 90 seconds. The man took the bag, put his wallet back in his pocket, and walked out of frame. 90 seconds. That's all it took to be me. Briggs paused the footage and rewound to the clearest frame of the man's face. It wasn't perfect. The cap cast a shadow across his eyes, and the camera resolution wasn't great. But it was enough. Enough to see the jawline, the shape of the nose, the way he carried himself. He looked like me. Not exactly, not like a twin or a double, but close enough that if you glanced at a driver's license photo and then glanced at this man, you wouldn't think twice. Same general build, same coloring, same approximate age. He'd chosen me on purpose, or he'd made himself look enough like me that the differences didn't register across a pharmacy counter at 9:43 in the morning. "Recognize him?" Briggs asked. I didn't. That was the worst part. I stared at that frozen frame until my eyes ached and nothing clicked. He wasn't a coworker, wasn't a neighbor, wasn't someone from my gym or my bar or my past. He was nobody I'd ever seen before. "No," I said. "I have no idea who that is." Briggs nodded like he'd expected that. Then he told me something that changed the shape of everything. The Milford apartment, the one rented under my name, they'd gotten the property manager to cooperate. The unit had been rented 6 weeks ago, paid in cash, month to month, minimal paperwork. The tenant had provided a driver's license and a pay stub. The license was my name, my date of birth, the man's photo. The pay stub was from my employer, my actual employer, with my actual salary on it. "How would he have your pay stub?" Briggs asked. I thought about it. Pay stubs were digital. They came through our company's HR portal. You needed a login and password to access them. I hadn't shared mine with anyone. I hadn't written it down anywhere. I changed my passwords regularly, or at least I thought I did. Then I remembered. 6 weeks ago, I'd gotten an email from what looked like our HR department. "New portal update. Please verify your credentials." I'd clicked the link, entered my login, entered my password, hit submit. The page had glitched and redirected me to the normal portal, and I'd thought nothing of it. Didn't even mention it to anyone. Just went about my day. A phishing email. A basic, textbook phishing email. And I'd fallen for it. I told Briggs this and watched him write it down. I felt like an idiot. I work in insurance. I deal with fraud claims all day. I know what phishing looks like. I've rejected dozens of suspicious emails without a second thought. But this one had come on a Tuesday morning when I was distracted and underslept, and the formatting looked right, and I didn't check the sender address, and that was all it took. One click. One moment of not paying attention. From that login, they would have had access to my pay stubs, my tax documents, my direct deposit information, my emergency contacts, my benefits enrollment, including my health insurance details, and the name of my prescribing doctor. One portal, everything connected, everything exposed. Briggs asked if I'd changed my passwords since then. I had. I changed everything the day after the pharmacy incident. But 6 weeks was a long time. 6 weeks of access. 6 weeks of downloading, screenshotting, saving. By the time I locked the door, they'd already emptied the house. I drove home from the station in a daze. The rain had slowed to a thin drizzle, the kind that hangs in the air more than it falls. I parked outside my apartment and sat there staring at the building, the peeling paint on the front steps, the dim light above the entrance, my window on the second floor with the blinds drawn. Somewhere out there, in an apartment in Milford, a man had a copy of my life spread out in front of him. My name on his driver's license, my salary on his pay stub, my diagnosis in my medical records, my fears, my anxieties, my worst moments, all written down in therapy notes he should never have seen. And he looked enough like me to use all of it. I went inside, locked the door, checked it twice, and stood in my kitchen listening to the faucet drip. The apartment was dark. I didn't turn on the lights. Didn't want to signal that I was home. Didn't want to perform my routine for someone who might be watching, timing, taking notes. Then my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. 4 words. You should lock your car. I looked out the window at the parking lot below. My car was sitting right where I'd left it. Driver's side door slightly ajar, the dome light glowing faintly in the rain. I hadn't left it open. I was sure of it. I always locked it. I always heard the beep. But someone had been in that parking lot, right there, right outside my building. Maybe while I was sitting inside in the dark, thinking I was hidden. Maybe while I was still in the car. I didn't move. Stood at the window with my phone in my hand and stared at the parking lot below, like if I looked hard enough I'd see him standing between the cars, watching me watch him. But the lot was empty, just pavement, puddles, and the soft orange glow of the security light reflecting off the wet ground. My car sat there with its door cracked open like a mouth. The text had come from a number with a local area code. I stared at it, thumbs hovering over the keyboard, and almost typed back. Almost asked who they were, almost demanded an answer. But something stopped me, some instinct buried under the panic that said, don't engage, don't let him know you're scared, don't give him anything. I called Briggs instead, got his voicemail, left a message that probably sounded unhinged, talking too fast, tripping over words, saying he texted me and my car door's open and he was here, in a voice I barely recognized as my own. Then I called 911. 2 officers showed up 12 minutes later. They checked my car first. Nothing missing. Wallet wasn't in there. Nothing in the glove box was disturbed. But the driver's seat had been adjusted, pushed back about 2 inches from where I keep it. I'm 5'10". Whoever sat in my car was taller. They'd sat in my car, not stolen anything, not damaged anything, just sat in it, adjusted the seat like they were getting comfortable, like they were trying it on. One of the officers checked the parking lot, walked the perimeter of the building, checked the side street. Nothing. Whoever sent that text was gone. The officer told me the number was probably a burner, prepaid, disposable, untraceable. He said it like it was a fact of life, like burner phones were just weather. I didn't sleep that night. Sat on my couch in the dark with every lock engaged and the kitchen knife on the cushion next to me, which I know sounds pathetic, but I didn't own anything else. I'm not a gun person. I'm not a fight person. I'm the person who takes Lexapro because the world already feels like too much without someone actively trying to dismantle my life. The rain came down all night. Heavy, constant. The kind that turns the gutters into rivers and makes the walls feel thin. Every sound in that building traveled. Pipes groaning, the upstairs neighbor's TV, a door closing somewhere down the hall. Each one sent a jolt through my chest. Each one made me grip the knife a little tighter. Around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow, deliberate. One step at a time, with a pause between each one that lasted just long enough to feel wrong. My apartment was on the second floor. The stairs were right outside my door, old wooden steps that creaked no matter how carefully you walked. I knew every sound they made, I knew my upstairs neighbor's heavy, tired trudge. I knew the landlord's quick shuffle on the rare occasion he visited. This wasn't either of those. These footsteps were measured, patient, like someone counting each step. They reached the second-floor landing, stopped. I was on my feet without deciding to stand. Knife in my hand, phone in the other, eyes locked on the front door. The landing was small, just a square of space between my door and the stairs going up. If someone was standing there, they were 3 feet from me, with nothing between us but an 1.5 inches of wood and a deadbolt I'd installed myself with a YouTube tutorial. Silence. The rain filled it, drumming on the roof, hissing against the windows. But underneath the rain, nothing. No movement, no breathing, no retreating footsteps. Just someone standing on the other side of my door. I crept forward, put my eye to the peephole. The landing was dark. The hallway bulb had been out for weeks, something I'd been meaning to tell the landlord about and never did. All I could see was the shape of the banister, the top of the staircase, and shadow. Deep, flat shadow where a person could be standing and I'd never know. My phone lit up in my hand. Another text, same number. I can hear you breathing. My legs gave out. Not dramatically, they just stopped working. I slid down the door and sat on the floor with my back against it, the knife shaking in my fist, rain pounding everywhere, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Every thought was just noise, static, the same 3 words repeating over and over. He's right there. He's right there. He's right there. I called 911 again, whispered the address, said someone was outside my door, said please hurry. The dispatcher told me to stay inside, stay calm, stay on the line. Her voice was steady and far away, like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. The minutes stretched. 2, 3, 4. I sat on the floor, listening for any sound from the other side of the door. At some point, I don't know when, I heard a single footstep, then another, going up, not down. Slow and quiet, climbing the stairs to the 3rd floor. Then nothing. The police arrived 6 minutes after my call, searched the building top to bottom. The 3rd floor was empty, just 2 apartments, both locked, both tenants confirmed inside and asleep. The roof access door was unlocked. It was always unlocked. Nobody had ever bothered to fix it. He'd gone up and out, stood on the other side of my door in the dark, texted me while I pressed my eye to the peephole, and then walked up to the roof and disappeared into the rain. The officer who took my statement looked at me the way you look at someone who's coming apart at the seams. Not with judgment, with the quiet acknowledgement that something very bad is happening, and there isn't much anyone can do about it right now. "Is there somewhere else you can stay tonight?" he asked. I called my friend Derek. He came and got me at 4 a.m. without asking a single question. I rode in the passenger seat with the knife still in my jacket pocket and watched the rain-slicked streets slide by and thought, he was 3 feet away from me, on the other side of the door, close enough to hear me breathe, and I never heard him arrive. I didn't go back to that apartment for 2 weeks. Derek let me crash on his couch, no questions asked, no timeline given. He's that kind of person. I worked from his kitchen table during the day and lay awake on his couch at night, listening to rain hit his windows and flinching every time the building settled. Briggs called me on a Monday. They'd traced the burner phone to a convenience store purchase in Milford. Paid cash, of course. The Milford apartment had been vacated. The tenant had cleared out sometime over the weekend, left nothing behind except a trash bag full of shredded paper. The forensic team pieced together what they could. Most of it was junk, fast food receipts, junk mail. But some of it was mine. Printouts of my pay stubs, a copy of my insurance card, pages from what looked like my medical records, my therapy notes, torn into strips so small you could barely read a full sentence. He'd shredded everything before he left, cleaned the apartment, wiped it down. The property manager said it looked like nobody had ever been there, like the whole thing had been erased. The police never identified him. The pharmacy footage wasn't clear enough for facial recognition software to return a match, and the fake driver's license was a dead end. Professionally made, no prints, ordered from somewhere online that Briggs said they were still trying to track. The text messages came from a number that was disconnected within hours of the second text. The phishing email had been routed through 3 different servers in 2 countries. Whoever this man was, he understood how to disappear. He'd practiced it. Briggs told me during our last real conversation about the case that he believed the man had done this before. The level of preparation, he said, the patience, the way he covered his tracks, this wasn't someone's first time. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was reading a weather report. But I could hear something underneath it. Frustration, maybe. The quiet anger of someone who knows a predator is still out there and can't do a thing about it. I moved. Found a new apartment in a different town, different county. Paid the deposit in cash because I didn't want my name attached to anything that could be searched. I changed my phone number. Changed every password I had. Email, banking, insurance portal, social media, everything. Set up 2-factor authentication on anything that offered it. Put a freeze on my credit. Requested a new social security number, which is a process so bureaucratic and dehumanizing that it almost felt like being victimized again. I'm back on my medication. Different pharmacy, different doctor, security questions on every pickup. I go in person and I show my face and I make sure they see me. I don't trust the system to know the difference between me and someone pretending to be me. Not anymore. The thing that stays with me, the thing I can't shake, even now, almost a year later, isn't the night he stood outside my door. It's not the text messages or the car or the shredded therapy notes. It's the pharmacy counter. That first moment when Patrice looked at me over her glasses and said someone had already picked up my prescription, because in that moment, the system had already decided I wasn't me. Someone else had walked in, said my name, shown my face, and been accepted. And when I showed up, the real me, the actual person, I was the anomaly. I was the one who didn't make sense. The imposter had come first, and as far as the computer was concerned, the transaction was complete. That's what identity theft really is. It's not about money. It's not about credit cards or insurance fraud or forged documents. It's about the moment when you say, "I'm me," and the world says, "Prove it." And you realize that everything you thought made you, your name, your history, your most private thoughts, can be carried out of a pharmacy in a white paper bag by a stranger in a baseball cap. I still don't know who he was. I don't know why he chose me. I don't know if it was random, a phishing email cast wide and I just happened to bite, or if he'd selected me specifically, deliberately, for reasons I'll never understand. And I don't know if he's done. That's the part that keeps me up at night. Not the rain on the windows, not the creak of unfamiliar stairs in a new building, not the phantom buzz of a text message from a number that no longer exists. It's the not knowing. It's the possibility that somewhere out there, a man who looks enough like me is sitting in a room with someone else's name on a screen, someone else's medical records in his hands, learning someone else the way he learned me. Patient, quiet, thorough, and they don't even know it yet. An Uber driver recognized me and asked how my arm was feeling. I've never been in an Uber, and nothing is wrong with my arm. There's a specific kind of fear that comes with being recognized by someone you've never seen before. Not the polite, "Oh, you look familiar" kind, the confident kind. The kind where they say your name like they know you, ask about your life like they've been in it, and you're standing there searching their face for anything, any detail, any feature that might explain how this stranger knows who you are. That's what happened to me outside a CVS on a Tuesday afternoon, and I still haven't recovered from it. I need to back up a little. My name is Meg, short for Megan, but nobody's called me Megan since my grandmother died. I was 23, living in a duplex with my roommate Priya on the east side of town, working at a vet clinic during the day, taking online classes at night, trying to get into a veterinary program that I couldn't really afford but couldn't bring myself to give up on. My life was small and structured and completely unremarkable, which was fine with me. Small and structured meant I knew where everything was, meant nothing surprised me. The duplex was on Caldwell Avenue, a residential street about a mile from the main strip where all the shops and restaurants were. Quiet area, big old trees that dropped leaves all over the sidewalks in autumn and turned the gutters into rivers when it rained. Our unit was the left side, a couple named Dan and Rosa on the right. We shared a front porch and a driveway and a general policy of friendly but minimal interaction. Priya and I had been there about a year and a half, felt settled, felt like ours. I didn't drive. That's important. I'd had my license since I was 17, but sold my car after I moved because parking was a nightmare and the clinic was walkable. Priya had a car, and for anything else I took the bus or bummed a ride. I'd never used Uber or Lyft, not out of principle, just never needed to. Didn't even have the apps on my phone. My routine those days was simple. Walk to the clinic by 8, work until 4, walk home. Stop at CVS or the grocery store if I needed something. Home by 5, study, eat, maybe watch something with Priya if she wasn't at her boyfriend's place. Weekends I'd go for long walks around the neighborhood. I liked the quiet, the rhythm of it, the way the streets emptied out in the evenings and the rain would roll in off the hills and turn everything soft and gray. That Tuesday, I'd stopped at CVS after work to pick up allergy meds. Nothing eventful. Grabbed what I needed, paid, walked outside. The parking lot was half empty. Late afternoon light going golden. A light drizzle just starting to mist the air. I was standing near the entrance, looking at my phone, checking if Priya had texted me back about dinner, when a silver Camry pulled up to the curb about 10 feet from me. The driver leaned across the passenger seat and looked at me through the window. Middle-aged guy, maybe late 40s, baseball cap, glasses, neutral expression. He smiled, not a creepy smile, just a normal, friendly, I know you smile, and said, "Hey Meg, how's the arm feeling?" I looked up from my phone, looked at him, looked at the car. There was an Uber sticker in the lower corner of the windshield. "Sorry," I said. "Your arm," he repeated, nodding toward my left arm. "You said it was bothering you last time. Figured I'd ask." I stared at him. My left arm was fine. Both arms were fine. I hadn't hurt my arm, hadn't mentioned my arm to anyone, hadn't had any kind of arm issue at any point in recent memory, and I had never, in my entire life, been in this man's car. "I think you have me confused with someone," I said. He laughed a little. "Nah, I remember you. Meg, right? I picked you up a few weeks ago over on Caldwell. You were going to that plaza on Route 11. We talked about your arm. You said you'd tweaked it at work or something." Caldwell. He knew my street. He knew my name. And he was describing a ride that never happened, a conversation that never took place, with total, easy confidence, like it was a fond memory, like we were old acquaintances catching up. "That wasn't me," I said. My voice sounded strange, flat, like someone had turned the volume down on everything. He squinted at me, still smiling, still friendly. "Really? You sure? You look exactly like..." He stopped, studied my face for a second, then shrugged. "Huh. My mistake. Sorry about that." He straightened back up behind the wheel and pulled away. I stood in the CVS parking lot with my bag of allergy meds and watched his car turn onto the main road and disappear into traffic. The drizzle thickened slightly, speckling the pavement around me. Someone walked past me into the store, and I didn't register them at all. He knew my name, he knew my street. He described picking someone up from my neighborhood who looked exactly like me and had my name and talked about her arm hurting. I walked home faster than usual, kept my head down, earbuds out, listening to everything. The rain was picking up by the time I got to Caldwell, tapping against the canopy of leaves overhead, running along the curb in thin streams. I unlocked the front door, went inside, locked it behind me, and stood in the hallway for a long time. Priya wasn't home. The duplex was quiet, just the fridge humming and the rain against the windows and the sound of my own breathing, which I realized was faster than it should have been. I put down my bag, looked at my left arm, turned it over, flexed my fingers. Nothing wrong with it, nothing at all. Then why did a stranger think there was? I told Priya about it when she got home that night. Sat on the kitchen counter while she made pasta and laid it all out. The Camry, the Uber sticker, the guy knowing my name, Caldwell, the arm thing. She listened the way Priya always listens, quietly stirring the pot, not reacting until she's heard the whole thing. When I finished, she said, "That's weird." I know. Could be a coincidence, though. Meg's not an uncommon name, and Caldwell's a long street. Maybe he picked up a different Meg from the other end. That was possible. Caldwell ran about 2 miles, mostly residential, lots of duplexes and small houses. There could absolutely be another Meg on Caldwell, a Meg who takes Ubers, a Meg who hurt her arm, a Meg who apparently looks exactly like me. He was really sure, I said. He didn't hesitate, didn't say, "Are you Meg?" He just said my name like he was greeting me. Priya shrugged. Some people are confident like that. Doesn't mean he's right. I let it go. We ate dinner, watched 2 episodes of something I don't remember, and I went to bed. But I didn't fall asleep for a long time. I lay there listening to the rain tapping on the window, steady and familiar, and I kept replaying the way he'd said it. "Hey Meg, how's the arm feeling?" Casual, warm even, like we had a rapport, like I was a regular. The next day at work, I told my coworker Diana about it. Mostly to hear myself say it out loud again, to test whether it still sounded as unsettling in the fluorescent light of the clinic as it had in the CVS parking lot. Diana's reaction was different from Priya's. She put down the chart she was holding and looked at me. "Someone's using your name," she said. "What do you mean?" "I mean someone who looks like you is getting into cars and telling drivers her name is Meg and that she lives on Caldwell. That's not a coincidence. That's a person choosing your identity." I hadn't thought of it that way. Priya's version was comforting. Wrong Meg, simple mix-up, move on. Diana's version was a door I didn't want to open. "Why would someone do that?" I asked. Diana shrugged. "Safety, maybe? Some women give fake names in ride shares, fake addresses, so the driver doesn't know where they actually live." That made sense. Practical even. Someone uses a fake name and a fake street for safety reasons. Happens to pick Meg. Happens to pick Caldwell. Happens to look enough like me that a driver remembers the face weeks later. Unlikely, but not impossible. I decided that was the explanation. Wrote it off. Moved on. For about 4 days. That Saturday, I was walking home from the grocery store around 5 p.m. The route takes me past a small strip mall, dry cleaner, nail salon, a Thai place Priya and I liked. I had 2 bags, one in each hand, earbuds in, half listening to a podcast. The sky was overcast, heavy with the kind of clouds that promise rain by evening. I was thinking about nothing in particular when I passed a woman sitting on the bench outside the nail salon. She was on her phone, legs crossed, bag at her feet. I glanced at her the way you glance at anyone, quick, automatic, forgettable, but something made me look back. She was wearing my jacket, not the same brand, not a similar style. My jacket, the olive green utility jacket with the torn pocket on the left side that I'd been meaning to sew for months. The same jacket that was currently hanging on the hook by my front door because it was too warm to wear today. I stopped walking, stood there on the sidewalk with my grocery bags, staring. The woman didn't look up. She was maybe my height, similar build, brown hair about the same length as mine. I couldn't see her face clearly. She was angled away, looking down at her phone. But the jacket was unmistakable. I knew that tear. I knew the way the collar sat slightly uneven because the stitching had come loose on one side. I knew the faded spot on the right shoulder where I'd leaned against a wet wall and the dye had lifted. My brain started doing that thing where it tries to protect you from what you're seeing. Lots of jackets look alike. It's a common style. You're projecting because of the Uber thing. You're being paranoid. Walk away. I almost did. Almost kept walking, bags in hand, head down, telling myself I was losing it. But I didn't. I stood there, and I watched, and after about 30 seconds, the woman stood up from the bench, put her phone in her pocket, my jacket's pocket, the right one, because the left one was torn, and walked into the nail salon. As she turned, I caught her profile for just a second, the shape of her nose, the line of her jaw. She looked like me. Not identically, not like a twin, but close enough that a tired Uber driver at the end of a long shift, glancing in his rearview mirror at a passenger in his back seat, would remember her face, and weeks later mistake me for her without a moment's hesitation. I stood there until my hands started aching from the grocery bag handles cutting into my fingers. The rain was just beginning, a few drops on my shoulders, on the paper bags, darkening the concrete in scattered spots. I thought about going inside, walking into the nail salon, tapping her on the shoulder, saying, "What? Nice jacket? Who are you? Why do you look like me, and why do you know my name?" I didn't go in. I walked home, fast, nearly jogging. By the time I got to Caldwell, the rain was coming down hard, soaking through the grocery bags until the paper started going soft in my hands. I went inside, locked the door, and immediately checked the hook by the front door. My jacket was there, olive green, torn left pocket, faded right shoulder, hanging exactly where I'd left it. I stared at it for a long time. Then I checked the rest of the house, every room, every closet, every window lock. Everything was in place. Everything was mine. Nothing was missing. Nothing except my sense that I was the only person living my life. I went back to the nail salon the next day. Sunday afternoon, bright out, the strip mall busy with weekend traffic. Told myself I was just going to ask a question. Casual, no big deal. The woman at the front desk smiled when I walked in. "You're back," she said. "Same as last time?" My stomach turned to ice. "What do you mean, last time?" She looked at me like I was joking. "You were here yesterday. The gel set, French tips." She glanced at my hands. Her smile faltered. "Oh, did you take them off already?" I looked down at my nails, bare, short, no polish. I hadn't been in this salon in over a year. "That wasn't me," I said. The receptionist blinked, looked at my face, looked at her computer, back at me. "Huh," she said. "You really do look alike." She booked under Meg, paid cash. I felt the floor tilt under me. Not dramatically, not like I was going to faint. More like the ground had shifted half an inch to the left, and everything I thought was solid wasn't anymore. I asked if she remembered anything else about the woman. She said she'd been friendly, quiet, came in alone. Wore an olive green jacket. Had mentioned she lived nearby. "Did she say anything else?" I asked. "Anything about, I don't know, anything personal?" The receptionist thought about it. She mentioned her arm was bugging her, said she'd tweaked it at work. I remember because she winced when I was doing her left hand. The arm. There it was again. The same detail the Uber driver had mentioned. A hurt left arm that I didn't have, attached to a person who wasn't me, but looked like me and used my name and wore my jacket and apparently lived in my neighborhood and frequented places I could walk to from my front door. I thanked the receptionist and left. Stood outside on the sidewalk in the sun and called Diana because I couldn't think of who else to call. Priya would tell me I was overreacting. Diana would tell me the truth. "Someone went into the nail salon yesterday using my name," I said. "Same woman. The staff thought I was her. She paid cash and she complained about her arm, the same arm thing the Uber driver mentioned. Diana was quiet for a beat. Then, Meg, this isn't random. This person knows you. They know your name, your street, what you look like, what you wear. They're going places near where you live and pretending to be you. You need to go to the police. I knew she was right. I also knew exactly how it would sound. Hi, I'd like to report someone who looks like me getting her nails done. But I went. Monday morning, before work. Sat in the station lobby for 40 minutes, gave my statement to an officer who typed slowly and asked a lot of questions I didn't have answers to. Did I know anyone who looked like me? No. Did I have a twin or a sibling who resembled me? No, I'm an only child. Had I had any recent conflicts, breakups, disputes? No. Had anyone threatened me? No. Was anything missing from my home? No. He said they'd make a note of it, said it sounded like it could be identity confusion or possibly someone using a fake name for ride shares. Said to come back if anything escalated. I walked out feeling exactly the way I'd felt walking in, unheard. That week, I started retracing my own steps. Not on purpose, exactly. More like I couldn't stop. I'd walk my usual route to work and scan every face. I'd pass the CVS and look at every silver Camry in the parking lot. I'd check the nail salon bench every time I went by the strip mall. I was looking for her. Looking for me. Looking for whoever she was. Wednesday evening, I found something. I'd stopped at the Thai place on the strip, the one Priya and I liked, to pick up takeout. When I gave my name for the order, the girl at the counter said, "Oh, are you picking up for both?" Both? There's 2 orders under Meg, 1 pad Thai, 1 green curry. She checked the screen. One was placed online about an hour ago. The other was a call-in. I'd called in the pad Thai. I had not ordered green curry. Someone had placed an order at our regular restaurant, under my name, within an hour of mine. Like they knew I'd be coming. Like they were shadowing my routine close enough to predict where I'd be and when I'd be there. I took my pad Thai, left the green curry, walked home in the rain with my head on a swivel, checking behind me every 30 seconds, heart thudding in my ears louder than the water hitting the pavement. The streets were quiet, nobody following me, nobody watching from a bench or a parked car or a doorway, just wet sidewalks and the hiss of tires on the road and the feeling, heavy, suffocating, that I was being studied by someone I couldn't see. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, or the idea of her, this faceless version of me walking my streets, eating at my restaurants, sitting in cars and telling drivers my name with my voice. I lay in the dark and listened to the rain drumming against the glass and tried to figure out what she wanted. Why my name? Why my jacket? Why my arm? Around 2 a.m., I got up to get water, walked past the front door, and stopped. The hook where my jacket hung was empty. I stood there, barefoot on the cold floor, staring at the empty hook. I'd checked it Saturday night. It was there. I'd seen it Sunday morning before I went to the salon. I hadn't moved it. Priya wouldn't have touched it. It was November, and my olive green jacket with the torn pocket and the faded shoulder was gone. I checked every closet, every chair, the laundry basket, the bathroom, the car, Priya's car, everywhere. It was gone, and every door in the house was still locked. I woke Priya up, shook her shoulder until she rolled over, squinting at me in the dark, and said, "My jacket's gone." She blinked. "What?" "My green jacket. The one on the hook. It's gone." "It's 2 a.m., Meg. I know what time it is. Someone took it. Someone was in the house." That got her up. We searched together. Every room, every surface, retracing all the places a jacket might reasonably end up when you're not paying attention. It wasn't anywhere. Priya tried to be rational about it. Maybe I'd left it at work. Maybe it fell behind the coat rack. Maybe I'd worn it somewhere and forgotten. I could see in her eyes that she was trying to keep this contained. Keep it in the category of things that have explanations, but I'd checked it. I'd specifically looked at it on Sunday because the woman at the salon had been wearing one just like it, and I'd needed to confirm mine was still there. It had been on the hook. Now it wasn't. I checked every window in the house, all locked. Both doors, front and back, locked. No scratches on the frames, no signs of forced entry, no broken glass, nothing. Whoever had taken it either had a key or had gotten in and out through a method I couldn't identify, and both of those possibilities made me want to throw up. We didn't go back to sleep. Sat in the living room with every light on, drinking tea we didn't want, waiting for morning. The rain had stopped at some point, and the silence it left behind felt worse. Thick, watchful, like the house was holding its breath. At 7 a.m., I called a locksmith. Had every lock in the duplex changed, our side, not Dan and Rosa's, though I thought about warning them. The locksmith was a heavy-set guy named Al who smelled like coffee and didn't ask questions. He replaced the front deadbolt, the back doorknob and deadbolt, and the lock on the side window in the kitchen that was old enough to pop with a credit card. When he was done, I asked him if there was any way someone could have gotten in without breaking anything. He looked at the old locks he'd just pulled out and turned one over in his hand. "These are basic quick-set locks," he said. "YouTube tutorial and a bobby pin. You're in under a minute. Wouldn't leave a mark." I paid him, and he left. I stood in the hallway holding 2 shiny new keys and feeling nothing close to safe. That afternoon, I went back to the police station. Different officer this time, a woman, younger, who actually looked at me when I talked. I told her everything. The Uber driver, the nail salon, the Thai restaurant, the jacket. She typed it all up, asked follow-up questions, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said something no one else had said yet. "Have you checked if someone's opened any accounts in your name?" I hadn't. She told me to run a credit check, look for unfamiliar charges, check if any new accounts or subscriptions had been created using my information. Said that what I was describing sounded like it could be a form of identity theft, not the financial kind, but something she called identity mirroring. Someone adopting another person's appearance, name, habits. She said it was rare. She said it was also very hard to prosecute because none of the individual incidents constituted a clear crime. She got her nails done, the officer said, used a common name, wore a similar jacket, ordered food. None of that is illegal on its own. But the pattern, she paused. The pattern is concerning. She gave me her card, told me to document everything, photographs, timestamps, receipts, anything. Said if I saw the woman again, don't approach her. Call them immediately. I took the card and left. That night I downloaded the Uber app for the first time, not to use it, to check. I created an account with my real name and email. The app let me in normally. No duplicate account, no rides associated with my name. Whoever had used Meg in that Uber hadn't used my email or my phone number. They'd just used my name and my street. Told the driver where to pick them up, sat in the back seat, had a conversation about an arm injury they didn't have, and then disappeared into wherever they disappeared to. Priya came home late. Her boyfriend had dropped her off. She came through the front door, new key, new lock, and stopped in the hallway. Looked at me sitting on the couch in the dark. "Meg?" "Yeah." "Why are all the lights off?" "I'm watching the street." She didn't argue. She sat down next to me. We sat together in the dark living room, looking out the front window at Caldwell Avenue. The street was quiet. Rain had started up again, light, steady, turning the street lights into soft halos on the wet pavement. Around 9:30, a car pulled up to the curb, 3 houses down, silver Camry, Uber sticker in the windshield. It sat there idling for a minute, maybe 2. Then the rear passenger door opened, and someone got out. A woman, my height, my build, brown hair, same length, wearing an olive green utility jacket with a torn left pocket. She closed the car door. The Camry pulled away, and she stood on the sidewalk for a moment, adjusting the jacket, my jacket, and looking down the street, toward our house. Priya grabbed my arm. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Just watched as the woman turned and walked in the opposite direction, away from us, past the row of parked cars, past the street light, into the dark end of Caldwell, where the trees hung low and the sidewalk faded into shadow. She didn't look back, but she didn't need to. She knew exactly where I lived. She'd already been inside. We called the police that night. Priya talked because I couldn't. She described the woman, the jacket, the Camry, the direction she'd walked. The officer on the phone said they'd send a car to patrol the area. By the time it showed up, 35 minutes later, Caldwell was empty. Wet pavement, parked cars, porch lights. Nothing. I didn't stay in the duplex that night. Priya drove us to her boyfriend's apartment, and I slept on their floor with a blanket that smelled like someone else's laundry detergent. And I lay there in the dark, thinking about a woman who looked like me walking away from my house in the rain wearing my clothes, and I couldn't make sense of any of it. I stayed away for almost a week, went to work from Priya's boyfriend's place, lived out of a bag, kept checking the street on Google Maps like it would show me something useful. The officer I'd spoken to, the one who'd given me her card, called me on Thursday, said they'd reviewed footage from a traffic camera near the strip mall and had captured a partial image of a woman matching my description entering the nail salon on the day in question. The image was low resolution, taken from across the street. The woman's face was turned away from the camera. They couldn't identify her. She also told me something I didn't expect. The Uber driver, the one who'd spoken to me at CVS, had given 3 more rides from Caldwell Avenue in the weeks since, all booked under the name Meg, all paid through a prepaid debit card with no traceable name attached. The pickup location was never my exact address. It was always nearby, a few houses down, the cross street, the end of the block. Close enough to be my neighborhood, never close enough to pin down an exact origin. The driver remembered the passenger, same woman each time. Friendly, quiet, always wore the green jacket, always got picked up after dark. He said she reminded him of me, which is why he'd said hello at the CVS. He said she'd told him her arm was getting better. The officer asked me again if I had any idea who this person might be. I said no. She asked if I'd noticed anything else unusual, mail going missing, packages opened, anything at the duplex that seemed tampered with. I thought about it. Then I remembered something I'd dismissed weeks ago. About a month before the Uber encounter, I'd come home and found a piece of junk mail on the kitchen counter, some credit card offer, that I didn't remember bringing in. I'd assumed Priya had grabbed it. Priya said she hadn't. We'd both shrugged it off. Junk mail. Who cares? But someone had brought it inside. Someone had been in the house, picked up a piece of mail with my name on it, and set it on the counter. And I'd looked right at it and thought nothing. I told the officer. She wrote it down, said they'd continue monitoring, but that without a direct threat or identifiable suspect, their options were limited. She was honest about it, sympathetic even, but honest. I moved out of the duplex at the end of November. Priya understood. She didn't want to stay either, not after what she'd seen. We broke the lease together, split the fee, went separate directions. She moved in with her boyfriend permanently. I found a studio apartment on the other side of town, in a building with a security door and a camera in the lobby and no ground floor windows. I got rid of everything that felt compromised. The jacket was already gone. She had it, wherever she was. I threw out the allergy meds I'd bought at CVS that day, which makes no sense, but I did it. Bought new clothes, new bag, changed my hair, cut it shorter, darker, not because I thought it would help, but because I needed to look in the mirror and see someone she couldn't be mistaken for. I still don't know who she was. The police never identified her. The Uber rides under my name stopped after I moved. The driver confirmed it. Whoever she was tied to Caldwell, tied to my life there, tied to the version of me that lived in that duplex and walked those streets and hung her jacket on that hook by the front door. Diana thinks it was someone who lived nearby. Someone who watched me for weeks or months before I ever noticed, learned my patterns, my name, my face, and started wearing them like a costume. She thinks the arm thing was invented, a detail to make the persona feel real, to give Meg a history that people would remember. She thinks the jacket was a trophy. I don't know what I think. I've gone over it 1,000 times and I can't land on anything that makes sense. Why me? Why my name? Why walk my streets and eat at my restaurants and sit in cars and pretend to be me? What was she building toward? What was the end game? The thing that keeps me up at night, the thing I can't get past, the thing that sits in my chest like a stone, is the arm. My left arm. Nothing was ever wrong with it. I'd never heard it, never mentioned it, never favored it. It was a detail that didn't come from my life. She made it up. She added it. Like she was editing me, taking what I was and adjusting it, improving the character, making her version of Meg slightly different, just enough to be hers. I cut my hair, I moved across town. I changed my locks and my routines and the grocery store I go to and the route I walk to work. But sometimes, on nights when the rain is heavy and the streets are empty and I'm walking home alone, I catch myself glancing at every woman who passes me, checking her height, her build, her jacket, wondering if she cut her hair too. The police called and asked me to confirm my alibi for last Thursday. Someone had filed a report using my full name, address, and birthday. I was eating cereal when they called. That detail shouldn't matter, but I keep coming back to it, the ordinary way the moment started. A Tuesday morning in March, overcast, my kitchen window streaked with old rain. I was standing at the counter in gym shorts and a t-shirt I'd slept in, eating Cheerios out of the box because I hadn't done dishes in 2 days, and my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it ring. Spam calls, car warranty robots, the automated voice telling you your social security number has been compromised, which is ironic, given what happened next. But the area code was local, so I picked up. "Is this Marcus Reed?" "Yeah, that's me." "Mr. Reed, this is Officer Delgado with the Westfield Police Department. I'm calling in reference to a report that was filed at our North Precinct on Thursday, March 7th. I need to ask you a few questions. It was 8:15 in the morning, and I had Cheerios dust on my fingers." "Sure," I said, because what else do you say when a cop calls you by your full name before you've had coffee? "Can you tell me where you were last Thursday evening between approximately 6 and 10 p.m.? I set the box down. "I was at work until 5:30. Then the gym on Broad Street, Life Fit, home by 7:30, stayed in the rest of the night." "Can anyone verify that?" "The gym scans my membership card, and I ordered DoorDash around 8 so there'd be a record." I paused. What is this about? A beat of silence, keyboard clicking in the background. A police report was filed in person at our North Precinct last Thursday evening at approximately 7:40 p.m. The individual provided your full legal name, your date of birth, and your home address as their identifying information. The kitchen went very still. "The report was an assault complaint," she continued. "The individual claimed they were the victim of an altercation outside a convenience store on Mercer Avenue. They provided a detailed statement and signed the report using your name." "That wasn't me." My voice came out flat and strange. "I've never been to the North Precinct. I've never filed a police report in my life." "That's what we're trying to determine." More typing. "Do you have your driver's license in your possession?" I walked to the hallway. Wallet on the table by the door, license in the plastic sleeve, my face staring back at me under bad DMV lighting. "Yeah, I've got it." "Has it been lost or stolen recently?" "No, it's been in my wallet." "Any unusual activity on your financial accounts? Unfamiliar charges? New accounts?" "Not that I know of." My stomach was doing something unpleasant. Not nausea exactly. More like the feeling at the top of a roller coaster, right before the drop, when your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to. She gave me a case number, Told me to monitor my credit, contact my bank, consider a fraud alert. Standard checklist stuff, delivered with the calm efficiency of a flight attendant explaining seatbelts. Then her voice shifted, just slightly, a small drop, like she'd stepped off script. One more thing. The individual who filed this report came into the precinct in person and presented a photo ID to the front desk officer. Okay. The front desk officer didn't flag anything unusual about the ID at the time. I stood there holding my wallet and tried to process what she was telling me. Someone had walked into a police station with an ID bearing my name and information, and the officer behind the desk had looked at the ID, looked at the person holding it, and seen nothing wrong. Which meant one of two things. Either they had a fake ID good enough to fool a cop, or they looked enough like me that the photo didn't raise a question. She recommended I come to the station to review the report and provide a formal statement. I said I would. We hung up. I sat down at my laptop and pulled up my bank accounts. Checking, savings, credit card. Went through 30 days of transactions line by line. Gas station on 4th, grocery store, Netflix, phone bill, the gym membership, the DoorDash order from Thursday that now felt less like dinner and more like an alibi I hadn't known I'd need. Everything was clean, no unfamiliar charges, nothing missing, nothing added. Somehow, that made it worse. Because if this were ordinary identity theft, there would be charges. Credit cards opened, money moved, accounts drained. That's what identity theft looks like. Someone wanting your money. This wasn't that. This was someone wanting your name. Walking into a police station, sitting across from an officer and saying, "I'm Marcus Reed," with enough conviction that nobody asked twice. Not for profit, not for money, for something else entirely, and the not knowing what sat in my chest like a stone I couldn't cough up. I called into work, got dressed, and drove to the North Precinct. I'd never been to that part of the city, 20 minutes from my apartment, across the river, a neighborhood I had no connection to, no friends, no errands, no reason to ever pass through. The precinct was a flat brick building with a flag out front and glass doors that reflected the gray sky. I parked in the visitor lot and sat there for a minute, watching people come and go, thinking about the fact that last Thursday at 7:40 p.m., someone who wasn't me had parked in this same lot and walked through those same doors and told a story and signed my name at the bottom. Inside, I asked for Officer Delgado, waited on a bench in a hallway that smelled like floor cleaner and burnt coffee. She came out after 10 minutes, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, a face that gave away very little. Handshake, small room. Table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner near the ceiling. She showed me the report first, printed form, typed fields, name, date of birth, address, phone number, all mine, every digit correct. The narrative section described an altercation outside a Quick Mart on Mercer Avenue. The individual claimed a man had followed them from the store, grabbed their arm in the parking lot, shoved them against a car. No witnesses listed. Suspect description: white male, medium build, dark jacket. At the bottom, in the signature line, was my name, handwritten. In handwriting, that wasn't mine. The letters were close, the M too sharp, the R too looped. But the overall shape was right, the rhythm of it, like someone who'd practiced. "Do you have cameras in the lobby?" I asked. "We do." She folded her hands. "And I want to be up front with you about something." She turned her laptop toward me and pressed play on a grainy black and white feed. Overhead angle, looking down at the front desk. A figure approached the counter, male, medium build, dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low. He handed something to the desk officer. The desk officer glanced at it, glanced at him, nodded. The man sat down in the waiting area, crossed one leg over the other, waited. He looked comfortable, not nervous, not rushed. He sat the way you sit when you're exactly where you're supposed to be. "Can you zoom in?" I asked. "This is the best resolution we have. The cap obscures most of the face." She paused. But based on build, approximate height, and the fact that the desk officer didn't question the ID, we're looking at someone who bears a reasonable physical resemblance to you. I watched the footage loop. The man approaching, the handoff, the nod, the comfortable sitting. Each time it played, I noticed something new. The way he put his hands on his knees, the slight tilt of his head when the desk officer spoke. Small gestures that looked almost familiar, like watching someone do an impression of you that's just accurate enough to make your skin prickle. "Has this happened before?" I asked. I don't know why I asked it. Instinct, maybe. The way he moved through that lobby, it was too smooth, too practiced. This wasn't his first time being someone else. Delgado looked at me for a moment. Then she pulled up something else on her laptop. Another form, different precinct. South, not north. Different date, January 14th. Same name, same date of birth, same address. Marcus Reed reporting a noise complaint against a neighbor at an address I'd never heard of on a street I'd never been to. "This one didn't trigger any flags because it was a minor complaint," she said. "No investigation, no follow-up. It sat in the system until your name came up again last week and the system cross-referenced." January. 2 months before the assault report. Someone had been me in January and nobody noticed. "Is that it?" I asked. "Just the two?" She hesitated. It was brief, a fraction of a second where her eyes moved to something on the screen and then back to me. "Those are the 2 reports filed with our department. I can't speak to other jurisdictions." Other jurisdictions. The words landed in my chest and sat there. She was telling me, without telling me, that there might be more, that someone could be walking into police stations and government offices and God knows where else, handing over an ID with my face and my name, filing paperwork, building a paper trail, constructing a version of Marcus Reed that existed in databases and filing cabinets across the city or beyond it. And I would never know unless something went wrong, unless the system burped, unless a date didn't line up or a signature looked off or an officer decided to make a phone call. This was the burp, the system catching an error, and all I could think was, how many times had it not caught one? "The assault report concerns us more than the noise complaint," Delgado said. "Filing a false police report is a crime, but filing one specifically as a victim, providing your information as the victim of an assault that may or may not have occurred, that raises a different set of questions." "Like what?" "Like why someone would want your name attached to a violent incident, whether they're building a pattern, whether this is targeted." The word targeted hung in the air of that small room like cigarette smoke. I'd been thinking of this as something that had happened to my information, my name, my data, numbers on a screen. But targeted meant it was happening to me, a person, not a data set. Someone had chosen Marcus Reed specifically, studied me enough to walk like me into a police station, and was doing something deliberate with the pieces of my life. "I need you to think carefully," Delgado said. "Is there anyone in your life, a former partner, a co-worker, a friend, anyone, who might have a reason to do this?" I thought. I sat in that chair under the ceiling camera and went through every person I knew. Every ex, every falling out, every awkward ending. Nothing rose to this level. Nothing even came close. This wasn't a bitter ex-girlfriend or a grudge from college. This was methodical, patient. Whoever was doing this had my full legal name, my date of birth, my address, and a physical ID convincing enough to pass inspection. That's not anger. That's planning. "No," I said. "I can't think of anyone." Delgado nodded. She gave me copies of both reports, told me she'd be in touch, walked me to the lobby. At the door she stopped and said something I think about constantly. "Mr. Reed, if anything unusual happens, anything at all, someone recognizing you from somewhere you haven't been, mail you didn't expect, a conversation that doesn't track, call me directly, don't wait." I drove home with the copies on the passenger seat and Delgado's voice in my head. "Don't wait." Like she knew something was coming that she couldn't say out loud. Like the 2 reports in the system were the visible part of something and the rest of it was still underwater. It took 9 days. 9 days of checking my bank accounts every morning. 9 days of Googling my own name and scrolling through results looking for something that didn't belong. 9 days of locking my mailbox, monitoring my credit, and jumping slightly every time my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. 9 days of nothing. Long enough that the stone in my chest started to dissolve. Long enough that I began constructing the version of the story where it was over. Some scammer got hold of my info, used it twice, got spooked when the police flagged it, moved on to someone else. Identity theft happens. It ends. You change your passwords and move on. On the 10th day, I went to pick up a prescription at the CVS on Broad Street. Same one I always use, 3 blocks from my apartment. I handed my insurance card to the pharmacist, a guy I'd seen a dozen times, late 40s, glasses, never remembered my name but always recognized my face. He looked at the card, typed something, looked at the screen, typed again. Then he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on a pharmacist's face before, confusion, followed by something careful and guarded, like a door closing behind his eyes. "Mr. Reed, did you already pick this up?" "Pick what up?" "Your prescription, the lisinopril. It was filled and picked up 4 days ago." "I don't take lisinopril. I've never been prescribed lisinopril. My prescription, the one I was there to pick up, was for a topical cream for a rash on my arm that wouldn't go away. I told him that." He frowned at the screen. "I'm showing 2 active prescriptions under your name and date of birth. The lisinopril was called in by a Dr. Hadid on March 12th and picked up on March 14th. The individual presented an ID and insurance card at the counter." I felt the floor tilt. Not physically. The tiles were steady under my feet. But something inside my inner ear shifted, the same nauseating vertigo from Delgado's office. Someone had filled a prescription under my name, had walked into a pharmacy, not this one. The system showed a different CVS location, one across the river near the North Precinct, and picked up medication as Marcus Reed, with an ID, with an insurance card. "I need to flag that," I said. "That wasn't me. Someone is using my identity." The pharmacist nodded slowly, the careful look still on his face. He called his manager. There were forms, phone calls, the pharmacy's fraud department. I stood at the counter for 40 minutes while people in line behind me shifted their weight and checked their phones and had no idea that the man at the register was watching his own name get peeled off him like a label from a jar. I called Delgado from the parking lot. She answered on the second ring. "The prescription is new," she said after I told her. "That's an escalation. Police reports are one thing. They're paperwork, they sit in a system. But using your identity to obtain medication means they're interacting with the healthcare system as you, building a medical history." "Why?" I said. "Why would someone need a medical history that isn't theirs?" She was quiet for a moment. "There are a few possibilities. None of them are casual." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push, because the possibilities were already arranging themselves in my head, and none of them were anything I wanted confirmed out loud. Someone was building a version of me, not stealing from me, becoming me. Police reports, prescriptions, an ID good enough to pass inspection every time. They were assembling the infrastructure of a life, and the life they were assembling was mine. 2 days later, the mail arrived with a letter from a dentist's office I'd never visited, a confirmation for an appointment next Tuesday under the name Marcus Reed. The address of the practice was, again, across the river. The letter thanked me for choosing their office and reminded me to bring my insurance card and a photo ID. I didn't go to the appointment, but I called the office and asked when it had been scheduled. The receptionist checked and said he'd called to book it the previous week. She said I'd been very polite on the phone, confirmed my date of birth, my address, my insurance information. She asked if I needed to reschedule. I hung up and sat on my couch and stared at the wall and tried to understand the shape of what was happening. Police reports, prescriptions, a dentist appointment. These weren't random acts of fraud. They were the ordinary, boring infrastructure of a real life. The things you accumulate when you exist somewhere, when you have a doctor and a dentist and a police record and a pharmacy that recognizes your name. Whoever was doing this wasn't stealing my identity to make money. They were stealing it to live in it. Somewhere across the river, in a neighborhood I'd never been to, another Marcus Reed was going about his days, filling prescriptions, booking appointments, filing complaints, building the mundane, verifiable evidence of a life, the kind of evidence that, if you ever needed to prove you were real, you'd point to and say, look, here I am. Here's my doctor. Here's my pharmacy. Here's the police report I filed when someone grabbed me in a parking lot. And the thing that kept me up that night, the thing that made me check every lock and lie in the dark, listening to my own breathing, was a question I couldn't stop turning over. If he was building proof that he was Marcus Reed, what was he building it for? And at what point would there be enough proof for two of me, and the wrong one would be the one people believed? I went across the river. I know that sounds stupid. Delgado would have told me not to, would have said to let the investigation run, stay in my lane, don't engage. But 3 weeks had passed since the pharmacy, and the investigation wasn't running. It was walking. Slowly. Through bureaucracy and jurisdiction questions, and the particular low-priority gravity that pulls on cases where nobody's been physically hurt and nothing's been stolen. Delgado called me once a week. She was professional and thorough, and clearly working other cases that involved more than a man whose name was being borrowed. So, on a Saturday morning in early April, I drove across the river to the neighborhood where the other me lived. I started at the Quick Mart on Mercer Avenue, the one from the assault report. It was a small place, fluorescent lit, with a bell on the door and a guy behind the counter who looked like he'd been there since the store opened. I bought a bottle of water and asked him, as casually as I could manage, if he'd been working the night of March 7th. He hadn't. I asked if there'd been any incidents in the parking lot recently. He shrugged and said there was always something. Dead end. I drove to the CVS where the prescription had been picked up. Different location than mine, smaller, quieter, tucked into a strip mall next to a laundromat. I didn't go inside. I just sat in the parking lot and looked at the doors and tried to picture him walking through them. The other Marcus Reed, with his baseball cap and his comfortable posture and his ID that nobody questioned. Picking up lisinopril at a pharmacy counter and saying thank you and walking out and driving. Where? Where did he go? Where did he sleep at night? This man who had my name but not my life. Or maybe he did have my life, a version of it. A copy running in parallel 20 minutes across the river, and the original sitting in a CVS parking lot on a Saturday morning trying to make the edges of it visible. I drove to the dentist's office next. It was on a residential street, ground floor of a 2-story building, closed on Saturdays. I peered through the window. Reception desk, waiting chairs, a magazine rack. Ordinary, completely ordinary. And somewhere in their files was a patient folder with my name on it, and inside it were x-rays of teeth that weren't mine. I was about to leave when a woman came out of the building's side entrance, not from the dentist's office, but from the stairwell that led to the apartments above it. She was carrying a laundry basket, mid-50s, tired-looking. She glanced at me standing on the sidewalk in front of the dentist's window and slowed. "Are they closed?" she asked. "They're usually open Saturdays." "Looks like it," I said. She shifted the basket to her other hip. Then she looked at me more closely, not suspiciously, more like she was placing me. The way you look at someone you've seen before but can't quite file. "You live around here?" she said. "You look familiar." Every hair on my arm stood up. "No," I said. "I'm from across the river." She shrugged, losing interest. "Must be thinking of someone else. You've got one of those faces, I guess." She walked to her car and drove away. One of those faces, or the same face as someone she'd seen coming and going from this building, from the dentist's office downstairs, from this neighborhood where Marcus Reed had a prescription and an appointment and a police record and a presence that people recognized on the sidewalk on a Saturday morning. I got in my car and drove home. My hands were steady on the wheel, but something behind my sternum was vibrating at a frequency I couldn't name. I parked in my usual spot outside my apartment building, got out, and walked to the front entrance. There was a package on the stoop. Small brown box, no markings, no return address. My name and address handwritten on the front in neat block letters. I picked it up. It was light, almost nothing inside by the weight of it. I carried it upstairs, set it on the kitchen counter, and stood there looking at it for a long time. The handwriting on the front wasn't the same as the signature on the police report. That had been a practiced imitation of my own handwriting. This was someone else's natural script, clean, deliberate, unhurried. The handwriting of a person who had stood on my stoop and placed this box where they knew I'd find it. They knew where I lived. Of course they knew. My address was part of the information they carried. But knowing an address and being at an address are different things. Databases are abstract. My stoop is concrete, 3 steps up from the sidewalk, close enough to my living room window that if you stood there at the right angle, you could see inside. I opened the box. Inside, wrapped in a single sheet of white tissue paper, was a driver's license. My driver's license, not my actual one, which was still in my wallet, but a duplicate. Same photo, same name, same date of birth, same address, same license number. I held it next to mine and compared them. They were identical. Not similar. Identical. Same photo, same font, same holographic overlay. If there was a difference between the one in my wallet and the one in the box, I couldn't find it. Underneath the license, on the tissue paper, was a handwritten note. 4 words: "You should lock your car." I put the license and the note down on the counter and walked to my living room window. Looked down at my car parked on the street. From this angle, I could see the driver's side clearly. The door was closed. Nothing looked wrong. I grabbed my keys and went downstairs. The car was locked. I checked every door, all 4, the trunk, locked. I unlocked it and sat in the driver's seat and looked around. Nothing missing. Nothing obviously moved. The DoorDash receipt from 2 weeks ago was still crumpled in the cup holder. My gym bag was still on the back seat. The air freshener on the rearview mirror was still there. The same one, pine-scented, half-used. Then I opened the glove compartment. My registration was gone. The insurance card was gone. In their place was a single sheet of paper, folded once. I unfolded it. It was a photocopy of my registration. Same information, same vehicle, same VIN number. But across the bottom, in the same neat block letters from the package, someone had written, "I sat here for 20 minutes on Tuesday. You walked right past me on the way to the gym. Tuesday. Last Tuesday." I tried to remember. Had I noticed anyone in a parked car? Had I glanced at the street the way I always do? The absent scan you give your surroundings when you step outside? I couldn't remember, which meant I probably had looked, and I probably had seen a man sitting in a car near my building, and I had processed it as nothing. Background noise. A stranger doing stranger things in a city full of strangers. Except he wasn't a stranger. He was me. Sitting in a car outside my apartment, watching me leave, close enough to see my face. And I had walked right past him without a second thought. I called Delgado. It went to voicemail. I left a message that I'm sure sounded unhinged. The package, the license, the note, the registration, the photocopy, the 20 minutes on Tuesday. I hung up and sat in my car in the exact seat he'd sat in and looked up at my apartment window and saw what he'd seen. My living room, the lamp I leave on, the shape of my life, visible from the street. He'd been right here, right where I was sitting, and the note wasn't a threat. That's what made it worse than a threat. It was a correction, a gentle, patient reminder that I'd been careless, that I'd left my car unlocked, that I'd left my registration inside it, that I'd walked past him without seeing him. The tone of it was almost helpful, almost kind, like one version of me looking out for another. Delgado called me back the next morning. She was quiet for longer than usual after I finished talking. Then she said she was escalating the case. The package on the stoop, the duplicate license, the note in the glove compartment, those crossed a line from identity fraud into something else. Stalking, harassment, physical proximity. Someone had been on my property, inside my car, close enough to watch me leave my apartment and walk 3 blocks without noticing them. That wasn't a scammer working from a laptop. That was a person standing in my life. A detective was assigned. Not Delgado, someone higher up, a man named Vargas. who had a voice like gravel and asked me questions Delgado hadn't. Whether I'd noticed anyone following me, whether my apartment showed signs of entry, whether I'd received any other packages, letters, or communications I hadn't mentioned. I told him everything. He told me to install a doorbell camera and to vary my routine. Stop going to the gym at the same time. Take different routes. Don't be predictable. Don't be predictable, like I was the one doing something wrong. Like the solution to someone stealing your life was to stop living it in a recognizable pattern. I installed the camera, changed gyms, started parking on different blocks. For 2 weeks, I lived like a person trying to shake a tail in a movie, checking my mirrors, scanning sidewalks, looking at every man in a baseball cap with the specific, exhausting vigilance of someone who doesn't know what they're looking for, but knows they'll recognize it when they see it. Nothing happened. No more packages, no more letters, no more prescriptions filled or appointments booked. The other Marcus Reed went quiet, the way he'd gone quiet between January and March. A gap in the pattern that could mean it was over, or could mean he was simply waiting, building something new, adjusting to the fact that I was paying attention now. Vargas called me after 3 weeks to give me what he had. The duplicate license was professionally made, not a novelty fake, not something printed in a basement. It had the correct holographic overlay, the correct cardstock weight, the correct barcode that would scan in any system and return my information. Whoever made it had access to either DMV equipment or something indistinguishable from it. The note and the photocopy were clean. No prints, no DNA, no trace evidence. The package had no postage, which meant it had been hand-delivered. The doorbell camera I'd installed captured nothing from before its installation, obviously, and nothing after it. Whoever this was knew I'd react, knew I'd add security, and had already adjusted. The investigation didn't close. It just stopped moving. There were no leads, no suspects, no breaks. Delgado checked in once more, then twice more. Then the gaps between her calls stretched wider, and I understood that my case had settled into the particular gravity of unsolved things. Still open, still technically active, but sinking slowly into a system that had newer, louder problems to attend to. I'm still Marcus Reed. I need you to understand that, because there are days when the sentence feels less like a fact and more like an argument I'm making. I have my driver's license, my bank accounts, my apartment, my job. I have the documentation of a life that I've been living for 31 years. All of it is real. All of it is mine. But somewhere, I believe across the river, in that neighborhood near the North Precinct, though I can't prove it, there's another set of documentation with the same name on it. Another medical history, another paper trail, another version of Marcus Reed with a dentist and a pharmacy and a police record and a face similar enough to mine that people don't ask questions. And that version is still out there. Still active, or still waiting, or still sitting in a parked car somewhere watching a door and taking notes in neat block letters. I check my credit weekly. I search my name in public records databases monthly. Every few weeks I call the pharmacy and the dentist's office across the river and ask if there's been any activity on my file. There hasn't been. Not since April. 4 months of silence, which should feel like relief, but instead feels like the space between breaths. A pause that acknowledges what came before and doesn't promise anything about what comes after. The thing people don't understand about this kind of violation, and I've tried to explain it to my friends, to my family, to the therapist I started seeing in May, is that it doesn't end. A break-in ends. A mugging ends. Even a stolen credit card ends. You cancel it. You get a new one. The charges get reversed, and you move on. But someone becoming you doesn't have a resolution. There's no card to cancel. There's no lock to change. The thing that was stolen is the thing you use to prove that things belong to you in the first place. Your name, your date of birth, the specific combination of facts that, when spoken aloud in the right order, mean this person is real, and they are who they say they are. I said my name at the bank last week, and for a half second, just a flicker, barely long enough to register, I wondered if the teller would look at me the way the pharmacist had, that cautious, closing expression. "Didn't you already come in?" The moment passed. She smiled and helped me, and nothing was wrong. But the flicker was there. And it's there every time now, at every counter, every check-in desk, every interaction where I hand over my ID and wait for someone to accept that I am who I say I am. Because what if one day they don't? What if one day I hand my license to someone and they look at it and look at me and say, "This doesn't match our records," or "You were already here," or "Sir, we show that Marcus Reed was in this office yesterday"? What happens when the copy has more receipts than the original? More doctor visits, more police reports, more verifiable interactions with the systems that decide who's real? I don't know. Delgado doesn't know. Vargas doesn't know. What I do know is this. Last week I was walking to my new gym, the one I switched to, different time, different route, different block, and I passed a man on the sidewalk. He was walking the other direction, hands in his jacket pockets, baseball cap, medium build. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, didn't acknowledge me in any way. Just a man on a sidewalk in a city full of men on sidewalks. But for 1 second, less than a second, a fraction, a pulse, I thought I saw my own walk, my gait, the specific way I carry my weight slightly forward, the way my right shoulder drops a half-inch lower than my left. It was there, and then it wasn't, absorbed into the crowd, gone around a corner, indistinguishable from everyone else. I stood on the sidewalk and watched him disappear. I didn't follow. I didn't call Delgado. I didn't do anything except stand there and wait for my heartbeat to slow down and wonder if I'd just seen him, or if I'd seen a stranger, or if the difference between those two things was getting smaller every day. And I wonder, and this is the part I can't say to the therapist, the part I can barely say to myself, whether he stood on this same sidewalk once, watching me walk away, and thought the exact same thing. I got a call from my bank about the account I opened last week. I didn't open an account last week. I need to say up front that I am not good with money. I know that. I've known that since I was 19, and overdrafted my checking account buying concert tickets I couldn't afford. I've bounced checks, missed payments, had my card declined at gas stations, the whole embarrassing catalog. So when I got a phone call from a bank asking about a new account, my first thought wasn't fear. It was confusion. Because the one thing I have never done in my entire adult life is voluntarily open a bank account. I had one. One checking account at a credit union my mom set up for me when I was 16. That was it. That was the whole financial empire. The call came on a Thursday afternoon in March. I was at home, and by home I mean the 2-bedroom rental I shared with my roommate Becca in a part of town that real estate listings would call up and coming, which really meant loud and cheap. I'd just gotten off a double shift at the bar where I worked, O'Malley's, this Irish pub downtown that was authentically Irish in the sense that an Italian guy from New Jersey owned it and hung some shamrocks on the wall. My feet were killing me. I was eating cereal on the couch at 3 p.m. because I hadn't grocery shopped in 2 weeks. Rain was coming down in that slow, gray, all-day way that makes the whole world feel like it's wrapped in wet paper. My phone rang. Caller ID said Heritage First National. I almost didn't pick up. I figured it was a scam. Those robocall things where they tell you your social security number has been compromised and you need to press one immediately. But something made me answer. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I was procrastinating on laundry. Whatever it was, I picked up. Hi, this is Kelsey from Heritage First National Bank. I'm calling for Mara Ostrowski. That's me, unfortunately. Yeah, that's me. Great. I'm just following up on the checking account you opened with us last week. We noticed the initial deposit hasn't cleared yet and wanted to make sure everything was in order. I put my cereal down. I'm sorry. What account? The checking account you opened on March 14th at our Greystone branch. We have you down for a standard checking with a $500 initial deposit. The deposit was made by check and it's still in a hold status. I just wanted to confirm. I didn't open an account. Silence on the other end. Not long, maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like a crack opening in the floor. I'm sorry. I didn't open an account at your bank. I've never been to your bank. I don't even know where the Greystone branch is. More silence, then the sound of typing. Quick, urgent typing, the kind where someone's looking for a problem they didn't expect to find. Ms. Ostrowski, I'm going to need to transfer you to our fraud department. Can you hold for just a moment? I held, sat there on the couch with my cereal going soggy and the rain tapping against the sliding glass door and this weird humming feeling in my chest, like a wire being pulled taut. The hold music was classical, something with strings, and it felt absurdly calm for what was happening. The fraud specialist who came on the line was a man named Dennis. He had the kind of voice that sounded like he'd delivered bad news professionally for 20 years. He confirmed what Kelsey had told me. A checking account had been opened at Heritage First National's Greystone location on March 14th, 6 days ago, using my full legal name, my social security number, my date of birth, and a state-issued ID. The ID was presented in person? I asked. Yes, ma'am. Account was opened in branch. The individual presented a valid driver's license matching the name on the application. A driver's license, with my name on it, presented in person, at a bank I'd never been to by someone I'd never met. What did they look like? I asked. My voice sounded strange to me, flat, distant, like I was asking about the weather. I don't have that information available. I can flag this for our security team, and they can pull the branch surveillance footage. But I'd strongly recommend you file a police report and contact the credit bureaus to freeze your credit. If someone has your social security number and a fraudulent ID in your name, this may not be the only account. That last sentence, this may not be the only account. It landed in my stomach like a stone dropped into water, and the ripples just kept spreading. I thanked Dennis, hung up, sat there. The cereal was ruined. The rain hadn't stopped. Becca wasn't home. She worked the day shift at a vet clinic and wouldn't be back until 7. The apartment was quiet in that heavy mid-afternoon way where you can hear the refrigerator humming and the clock ticking and your own heartbeat if you're still enough. I wasn't still. I was already on my laptop, pulling up my credit union account, checking for anything wrong. Everything looked normal. Same balance, same transactions, same sad little direct deposits from O'Malley's every 2 weeks. But that didn't calm me down, because Dennis was right. If someone had my social security number and a fake ID good enough to open a bank account in person, a checking account was probably just the beginning. I ran a credit check. The free kind, the one that takes 3 minutes and shows you things you don't want to see. My hands were shaking on the keyboard, and the rain was loud against the window behind me, filling the room with that constant hiss that usually made me feel cozy and now made me feel like I was sealed inside something. The report loaded. 3 accounts I didn't recognize. Heritage First was there. The checking account, opened March 14th. But there were 2 more. A credit card through a company called Meridian Capital, opened February 28th. And a second checking account at an online bank called Pinebrook, opened March 2nd. 3 accounts, 3 different institutions, all opened within 2 weeks. Someone was building something with my name, and they'd started before I even knew it was happening. I spent the rest of that afternoon on the phone. By the end of it, my ear was hot, my voice was hoarse, and I had a legal pad full of notes that looked like the scribblings of a conspiracy theorist. Case numbers, reference numbers, department extensions, names of people who couldn't help me, and names of people who said they could, but probably wouldn't. The Meridian Capital credit card was the one that scared me most. It had been open for 2.5 weeks and already had $3,200 in charges on it. I called their fraud line, and a woman named Gina walked me through the transactions one by one, while I sat at the kitchen table feeling my chest get tighter with each entry. There was a laptop from Best Buy, clothes from a department store, women's clothes my size, groceries from a Whole Foods I'd never been to, gas from 3 different stations, all in the same part of the city, a gym membership at a place called Apex Fitness, and a recurring charge from a self-storage facility, Ridgewood Storage, Unit 14B, billed monthly. That's a lot of activity for a new account, Gina said, in a tone that suggested she'd seen worse, but not by much. I didn't care about the laptop or the clothes or the groceries. I cared about the storage unit. Someone had rented a storage unit in my name and was paying for it with a credit card in my name, and whatever was inside that unit existed in a space that legally belonged to me. My name was on the rental agreement. My credit card was on file. If anything illegal was in there, it would trace back to one person. Me. Gina froze the card and initiated a dispute on every charge. She gave me another case number and told me the investigation could take 30 to 60 days. I wrote it down next to all the other case numbers and stared at the legal pad and thought about how my entire identity was now a list of problems other people would get to eventually. The police report was its own kind of nightmare. I went down to the station that evening, still in my bar clothes, still smelling like fryer oil and beer. The officer who took my statement was young, probably my age, and he did his best, but I could tell this was outside his usual rotation of DUIs and noise complaints. He wrote everything down and told me a detective would be assigned. He said it like it was supposed to be comforting. It wasn't. Becca was home when I got back. She could tell something was wrong the second I walked in. I'm not subtle when I'm upset. My face does this thing where it goes completely blank, which apparently is more alarming than crying. I told her everything. She sat on the kitchen counter with her legs dangling and her eyes getting wider with each new detail, and when I finished, she said, "Mara, what the hell?" Yeah, what the hell? That night I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed with my phone on my chest, refreshing my credit union app every few minutes, listening to the rain hit the window and the street outside. Every time a car drove by, the headlights swept across my ceiling and I'd tense up like a coiled spring. I kept thinking about the storage unit. What was in it? Why someone would need a storage unit in someone else's name? The answers my brain kept generating were not the kind that help you fall asleep. The next morning I called Ridgewood Storage, got a manager named Phil who sounded like he was eating something crunchy when he picked up. "Yeah, Unit 14B, he said between chews. "Rented about 3 weeks ago. Standard 10 by 10, climate controlled. Monthly auto pay on the card on file." "That card is fraudulent," I said. "The account was opened in my name without my knowledge." Phil stopped chewing. "Huh." I asked if he could tell me who rented it, what they looked like, whether they'd been back, whether there was surveillance footage. He said the rental was done online, which meant no in-person visit, no ID check, no camera footage of whoever set it up. Just a name, a credit card number, and an email address. "What email?" I asked. He hesitated, then gave it to me. It was my name, Mara.Ostrowski, at a Gmail address I'd never created. Someone had made an email account using my name, not a random string of numbers, not a burner throwaway, my actual name, formatted exactly the way I'd format it if I were making a new account. Like they knew me, like they were trying to be me as accurately as possible. I opened Gmail on my laptop and tried to log into the address. Obviously I didn't have the password, but I clicked "Forgot password" just to see what would happen. Google asked to send a recovery code to a phone number ending in 84. My phone number ends in 17, so whoever created this account had their own recovery phone attached to it, their own safety net, their own way back in. The rain had stopped for the first time in days and the silence felt wrong, too open, like someone had lifted the ceiling off my apartment and now everything was exposed. I closed the laptop and sat there staring at the wall and trying to figure out how someone could know this much about me. My social security number, my driver's license details, my clothing size, the way I'd format an email address, and I had absolutely nothing on them. Not a name, not a face, not a single detail. Then I thought about the charges again. The groceries from Whole Foods, the gas stations, 3 of them, all in the same area, the gym membership. Whoever this person was, they weren't just opening accounts. They were living, buying food, filling their tank, working out, using my name like a skin they'd pulled on, and all of it was happening in the same part of the city, a part of the city I recognized, because I drove through it every night on my way to work. I pulled up a map on my phone and dropped pins on every location from the credit card statement. Whole Foods, 2 miles from O'Malley's, gas station on Vine, 4 blocks from O'Malley's. Second gas station on Broadmoor, 6 blocks from O'Malley's. Third gas station, half a mile. Apex Fitness, 3 blocks. Every pin was within a tight radius, and at the center of that radius, almost exactly, was the bar where I worked 5 nights a week. I put the phone down, picked it up, put it down again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The rain started again outside, soft at first, then harder, drumming on the roof like fingers on a table. Someone wasn't just stealing my identity from a distance. They were living near me, shopping near me, moving through the same streets I moved through every single night. And I had no idea how long they'd been there. I told my manager at O'Malley's. His name was Garrett, and he was one of those guys who'd been bartending since before I was born and had a story for everything. But when I showed him the map on my phone, the pins, the radius, the bar sitting right in the middle of it, he went quiet. He looked at the screen for a long time. Then he looked at me and said, "You're not closing alone anymore." That helped, a little. What didn't help was what happened the next night. It was a Friday, which meant O'Malley's was packed. Loud music, every stool taken, 3 deep at the bar. I was working the well, mixing drinks, pouring drafts, running tabs, and I was grateful for the chaos because it kept my brain occupied. Couldn't think about credit cards and storage units when someone was screaming for a vodka soda over the noise. Around 10 p.m., I was pouring a Guinness when I noticed a woman sitting at the far end of the bar. She'd been there for a while. I'd served her a glass of white wine maybe an hour earlier. She wasn't loud, wasn't causing problems, wasn't doing anything unusual, but something about her kept pulling my eye. She was around my age, maybe a year or 2 older, brown hair, about my length, similar build. She was wearing a jacket I recognized, not the exact one, but the same brand, same color. A forest green utility jacket from a brand I bought from regularly. I had one almost identical hanging on the hook by my front door. That could have been a coincidence. People wear the same clothes. It happens. But then she paid her tab, and she paid with a card. And when she signed the receipt, I saw the name on it. Mara Ostrowski, my name, on a credit card, in someone else's hand, 6 feet away from me. The noise of the bar collapsed into this high-pitched ringing, like someone had pulled the plug on the room and all I could hear was my own blood. I watched her tuck the card back into her wallet, finish her wine, and slide off the bar stool. She pulled on her jacket, my jacket, the same jacket, and walked toward the door. I should have said something. I should have grabbed Garrett, pointed her out, called the police. But I couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the rubber mat behind the bar, and my hands were frozen around the pint glass, and I just watched her walk away. She moved through the crowd without looking back, pushed the door open, stepped out into the rain, gone. It took me about 30 seconds to unfreeze. Then I dropped the glass, literally dropped it, beer and all, and ran to the end of the bar where she'd been sitting. The receipt was still there, wet with a ring from her wine glass. I grabbed it. The signature was my name, not a messy version, not an approximation, my exact signature, the way I sign my name, the looped M, the way the O trails into the S, the little flick at the end of the I. I've signed thousands of receipts behind that bar. I know what my handwriting looks like, and this was it. Perfect. She'd practiced my signature, studied it, gotten it right. I called the detective. His name was Reeves, assigned to me 2 days earlier. He picked up on the 3rd ring, and I told him everything in one breathless rush, standing in the back hallway of the bar by the mop closet, with rain hammering the metal door behind me. He asked if we had security cameras. We did, one above the register, one by the front door. Garrett pulled the footage for me before the end of the night. The camera caught her, clearer than I expected. She'd sat at the end of the bar for an hour and 40 minutes, nursing that single glass of wine, watching me work. The front door camera got her leaving, a straight shot of her face as she pushed through the door into the street. Brown hair, my build, wearing my jacket. She looked enough like me that if you saw her across a room, across a bar, across a pharmacy counter, you might not question it. But she wasn't me, and the look on her face as she walked out, the camera caught it clearly, and I've watched it more times than I should admit, wasn't the expression of someone committing a crime. It was calm, settled, almost content, like she'd finished something satisfying and was heading home. She'd come to my bar to watch me, to sit 6 feet away and use my name to pay for a glass of wine while I poured drinks and didn't notice, like a test, like proof of concept. Reeves came to O'Malley's the next morning. He watched the footage, took copies, and told me something I wasn't ready to hear. The Greystone branch pulled their surveillance for us yesterday, he said. The person who opened the Heritage First account in your name was a woman. I'd been assuming it was a man. I don't know why. Maybe because every identity theft story I'd ever heard involved some guy in a basement with a laptop. But it wasn't. It was a woman. A woman who looked like me, who dressed like me, who'd practiced my signature until she could fool a bank teller and a bartender and probably anyone else who wasn't looking too hard. Reeves showed me the bank footage on his phone. Different angle, different lighting, but the same person, same jacket, same general look. She'd walked into Heritage First National, sat down with an account manager, smiled, made small talk, presented my driver's license with her photo on it, signed my name, and walked out with a new checking account and a debit card in a little paper sleeve. 15 minutes. That's how long it took her to become me in a bank system. 15 minutes and a smile. We're running her image through our databases now, Reeves said, but without a name or prints, it's going to take time. Time. Everyone kept offering me time, like it was a gift, and not the exact thing this woman was using against me. I went home after that and stood in the shower until the water ran cold. The bathroom was small, and the exhaust fan was broken, so the mirror fogged up completely. When I wiped it with my hand, I stood there looking at my own reflection, my face, my hair, my shoulders, and for one horrible, disorienting second, I thought about the woman in the footage, how her face could have been mine from 10 feet away, how she moved like me, dressed like me, signed like me. I looked at my own reflection, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't entirely sure it was mine. Reeves called me 2 days later and asked if I wanted to be present when they opened the storage unit. I said yes before he finished the sentence. They'd gotten a warrant. The storage facility was legally obligated to provide access, and since the unit was rented under my name, my stolen name, I had a right to see what was inside. Reeves said I didn't have to come, said it might be easier to wait and let them process it. But I was past the point of letting other people handle this for me. I needed to see. I needed to know what this woman was building behind a roll-up door with my name on the lease. Ridgewood Storage was a squat, gray complex on the edge of an industrial stretch near the highway. One of those places with orange doors in long rows, security cameras on poles, and a keypad gate that buzzed when you entered the code. Reeves met me in the parking lot with a uniformed officer and the facility manager, a tired-looking guy named Carl who kept checking his watch like he had somewhere better to be. It was raining. Of course it was raining. That thin, misty kind that doesn't fall so much as hang in the air, getting into everything. Your hair, your jacket, the space between your collar and your neck. The four of us walked down a concrete corridor between 2 rows of units, our footsteps echoing off the metal doors, and I could hear the rain tapping on the roof above us like something trying to get in. Unit 14B, standard orange door, padlocked. Carl cut the lock with bolt cutters. The metal snapped, and the sound bounced down the corridor and came back to us like a gunshot. Reeves rolled the door up. The first thing I saw was the light. Someone had set up a floor lamp inside, plugged into the outlet that came with the climate-controlled units. It wasn't on, but Reeves flicked it and the space filled with warm, yellow light. A 10 by 10 concrete box. It wasn't empty. It wasn't full of stolen goods or counterfeit documents or stacks of cash. It was something worse. It was a room, a lived-in room, a version of a room. There was a small desk against the back wall with a laptop on it, closed, a few stickers on the cover, the same brand as mine. A chair, a rug, rectangular, woven, almost identical to the one in my bedroom. On the desk was a coffee mug, a pen cup, a stack of mail. On the wall above the desk, taped neatly in a grid, were photographs. Of me. Dozens of them. Maybe 40 or 50. All printed on regular paper, slightly grainy, taken from a distance. Me walking to my car outside O'Malley's. Me standing at the mailbox in front of my apartment. Me at the grocery store pushing a cart down an aisle. Me sitting in my car at a red light. Me on the sidewalk with my phone to my ear. Me through the window of the bar pouring a drink, laughing at something someone said. Every photo captured a different moment from a different day, and in not a single one was I looking at the camera. I never saw her, not once. My legs went soft. I grabbed the door frame and leaned against it because the floor was tilting and I couldn't make it stop. Reeves was saying something. I think he was telling me not to touch anything, but his voice sounded like it was coming from the end of a tunnel. On the desk, the stack of mail was addressed to me, but not at my address. At an address I didn't recognize, an apartment on Glenmore Street, about 2 miles from O'Malley's. The same part of the city where all the credit card charges had clustered. She'd gotten mail sent there, under my name. Reeves picked up a folder from the desk with gloved hands and opened it. Inside were photocopies of my driver's license, my credit union statements, my pay stubs, my lease agreement. Things I kept in a filing box in my bedroom closet. Things that had never left my apartment, or so I thought. "Has anyone had access to your apartment recently?" Reeves asked. "Maintenance landlord? Anyone with a key?" My mouth opened, but nothing came out for a second. Then I remembered. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. I'd come home from a shift and the deadbolt was unlocked. I was sure I'd locked it. I always locked it, twisted it twice out of habit. But Becca had been home that day, and when I asked her, she said she'd stepped out to grab food and maybe forgot to lock up when she came back. I'd let it go. Didn't think about it again. But now, I was thinking about it. Because if someone had a copy of my key, or picked the lock, or found some other way in, they could have walked through my apartment while I was at work, opened my closet, gone through my filing box, photographed every document inside, sat at my desk, looked at my things, breathed my air, and I'd come home to an unlocked door and blamed my roommate. There was one more thing in the storage unit that I haven't mentioned yet because I'm still not sure how to talk about it. On the chair, folded neatly, was an outfit. Jeans, a black top, the green utility jacket, not the same one, but the same brand, same size, same color, and on top of the jacket was a lanyard with a laminated card on it, an employee badge, for O'Malley's. It had my name on it, my photo, one of the surveillance shots cropped and resized to badge dimensions. It looked real, professional, like something HR would hand you on your first day, except O'Malley's didn't use employee badges. We didn't have lanyards or laminated cards or anything like that. She'd made it herself, created a badge for a system that didn't exist, for a job she didn't have, with a name that wasn't hers. I backed out of the storage unit. Couldn't be in there anymore. The rain had picked up outside and I stood in it, face tilted toward the sky, letting it hit me because I needed to feel something real. Something that was definitely happening to me, the actual me. Not the version of me taped to a wall in a concrete box. Reeves came out a minute later. He stood next to me in the rain and didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, very quietly, "We're going to find her." I wanted to believe him, but all I could think about was the badge, the fake badge for a job that didn't require one. She wasn't just stealing my identity. She wasn't just committing fraud. She was rehearsing me. Practicing, getting the costume right, the props right, the details right, and I had no idea what the performance was for. They found the apartment on Glenmore Street. It was a studio above a dry cleaner, small, cheap, month to month. Rented under my name with a forged lease application. By the time the police got there, it was empty, not cleared out empty, wiped down empty. The landlord said the tenant had been quiet, polite, kept to herself, paid on time, never caused problems. He described a woman with brown hair, medium build, pleasant face. He said she seemed normal. Normal. That word kept coming up. Every person who'd interacted with her, the bank teller, the storage manager, the landlord, Tyler behind the pharmacy counter of her life, they all said the same thing. She seemed normal. She seemed fine. She seemed like exactly who she said she was. That's because she'd spent weeks making sure of it. Reeves ran her image through every database he had access to. Nothing came back. No match, no prior record, no outstanding warrants. She was a ghost with my face. The laptop from the storage unit was sent to digital forensics, but the hard drive had been wiped before she abandoned it. Clean. Professional. Like everything else she did. The Glenmore apartment yielded one piece of evidence the police found useful, a single fingerprint on the inside of the bathroom medicine cabinet. They ran it. No match in the criminal database, but Reeves told me they'd keep it on file in case she surfaced somewhere else, under someone else's name, living someone else's life. That was 8 months ago. I don't work at O'Malley's anymore. I couldn't. Every shift felt like standing in a fishbowl, pouring drinks under fluorescent light while somewhere out in the dark beyond the windows, someone might be watching, might be sitting in a car with a camera, might be walking past in my jacket, wearing my name, carrying a badge I never made. I moved to a different city. Becca understood. She cried when I left, which made me cry, which made us both laugh in that awful way you laugh when something is too sad to process. I found a new apartment under a slightly different version of my name, legal enough to sign a lease, different enough to not show up if someone searched for me. I got a new job, new phone number, new bank. I froze my credit so deep it might never thaw. I changed my hair, cut it short, dyed it darker, bought different clothes, stopped wearing the green jacket. I look in the mirror now, and I look like me, but not the me she was copying. Not the me she'd rehearsed. I changed the outside on purpose, so that if she's still out there wearing the old version, we won't match anymore, so the costume won't fit. But here's what I can't get past, the thing that wakes me up at 3 a.m. and won't let me go back to sleep. The storage unit, the apartment, the accounts, the badge, all of that was meticulous, patient, months of work, and she walked away from it, left the laptop, left the photos, left the outfit folded neatly on the chair like she was checking out of a hotel room. She didn't get caught. She chose to stop. Why? Was I practice? A dry run for someone else? Someone she actually intended to become permanently? Did she get what she needed from me and move on? Or did she stop because I found out? Because the system caught the glitch and the walls started closing in, and she decided to cut her losses before anyone got too close? I don't know. Reeves doesn't know. Nobody knows. Sometimes, late at night, when the rain is heavy and the apartment is dark and I'm lying in bed listening to the building settle around me, I think about her sitting at that desk in the storage unit, my rug under her feet, my mug in her hand, my photos on the wall, studying me like a language she was trying to learn, getting the grammar right, the inflection, the signature. And I wonder if she's sitting somewhere right now in another storage unit, in another city, with another woman's photos taped to the wall, another set of documents, another jacket on the chair, another name she's learning to write. I wonder if that woman knows yet. I really hope she does. A stranger at a bar said, "You look different in person," and showed me a dating profile with my photos and a name I don't recognize. I wasn't even supposed to go out that night. It was a Friday in March, cold and rainy, and I'd already committed to sweatpants and leftover Chinese and a documentary about cults that I'd been putting off for weeks. But my friend Val called me around 8 and said her co-workers were going to this bar downtown and she didn't want to go alone, and could I please just come for one drink? One drink. That's what she said. I want to be clear about that, because of what happened after. My name is Jules. I was 22, finishing my last semester at State, working part-time at a copy shop that smelled like toner and quiet desperation. I lived in a studio apartment above a bakery on Elliston Street. Tiny, drafty, but cheap and mine. I didn't go out much. Not because I was antisocial, just because I was tired most of the time, and my idea of a good Friday night involved not putting on real pants. Val was my closest friend, and the only person on earth who could reliably guilt me off my couch. I should also mention, and this matters, that I wasn't on any dating apps. Not Tinder, not Hinge, not Bumble, not any of them. I'd deleted everything about 8 months earlier after a string of dates that ranged from boring to mildly unsettling. Scrubbed my profiles, removed the apps, moved on. It was one of those decisions that felt dramatic at the time and then immediately felt like relief. I hadn't looked back, so I got dressed, took the bus downtown, met Val at this place called The Lantern, a mid-range bar with exposed brick and too many Edison bulbs, the kind of place that tries hard to feel effortless. Her co-workers were nice enough. We grabbed a booth, ordered drinks, did the normal thing. The rain was coming down hard outside, streaking the front windows, making the light from the street lamps smear across the glass. Inside it was warm, loud enough to feel alive, but not so loud you couldn't talk. I was actually glad I'd come. Around 10, Val and her co-workers moved to the pool table. I stayed at the booth to finish my drink and check my phone. The usual nothing, a few texts, the weather forecast reminding me it was going to rain all weekend like I couldn't hear it on the roof. I was scrolling through nothing when someone sat down across from me. I looked up. A guy, late 20s, maybe 30. Not bad looking, brown hair, decent build, wearing a button-down that was trying a little too hard for a Friday night at the Lantern. He was smiling at me with the kind of confidence that comes from thinking you already know someone. "Hey," he said. "You're way prettier in person." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said you look better in person. Your photos don't do you justice." He leaned back in the booth like he owned it. Comfortable, settled, like this was a planned meeting, not an interruption. "I think you have the wrong person," I said. He laughed. "You're Alina, right?" "No, I'm not." His smile dimmed a little. Not gone, just recalibrating. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward me. "This isn't you?" It was a dating profile. The app looked like Hinge, the layout, the prompts, the little heart icons. The name at the top said Alina, 23. The bio mentioned a love of documentaries, Thai food, and long walks that turn into adventures. The location was listed as my city, and the photos were mine. Not photos that looked like me. My actual photos. The first one was a picture Val had taken of me at a rooftop party last summer. I was laughing, holding a drink, wearing a yellow sundress I'd bought specifically for that night. The second was a selfie I'd posted on Instagram months ago, just me in my apartment with the bakery sign visible through the window behind me. The third was a candid from a friend's birthday dinner, me mid-conversation, fork in hand, completely unaware the photo was being taken. My photos, my face, my apartment window, under someone else's name. "That's not me," I said, and my voice came out quieter than I intended. "I mean, those are my pictures, but that's not my profile. I don't have a profile. I'm not on any dating apps." The guy stared at me. The confidence drained out of his face in real time. It was like watching a mask come off. What was underneath wasn't anger. It was confusion. "Wait, what?" "Someone's using my photos. I've never seen that profile before. My name isn't Alina." He looked at his phone, looked at me, looked at his phone again. "I've been talking to this person for 2 weeks," he said slowly. "We were supposed to meet here tonight. She said she'd be at the booth near the window." I was sitting in the booth near the window. The rain was hammering the glass behind me. The bar noise swelled and faded like a tide. I sat there looking at this stranger who'd walked in expecting a date and found me instead. The real face behind a fake name. And I felt something cold and formless settle into my chest. Someone had taken my photos, built a profile, invented a name, chosen this bar, described this booth, and sent this man to find me, not Alina. Me. The guy's name was Derek. I know that because he told me, awkwardly, after about 30 seconds of us just staring at each other across the booth like two people trying to solve the same puzzle from opposite sides. "I'm Derek," he said. This is really weird. I'm sorry." "Show me the messages," I said. He hesitated. I don't blame him. A minute ago he thought he was meeting a date. Now he was sitting across from a stranger who'd just told him her face had been stolen. But he unlocked his phone and turned it toward me. The conversation was 2 weeks long. Alina had matched with Derek on Hinge. The first few messages were standard. "Hey, how's your week? What do you do?" She said she was a grad student, studied psychology, new to the city. The messages were warm but measured, the kind of thing that feels natural without revealing much. She used a lot of questions, asked about his job, his hobbies, his neighborhood, drew him out without giving a lot of herself in return. I scrolled further. Around day 5, the conversation shifted, more personal. She told Derek she'd gotten out of a bad relationship recently and was nervous about meeting people. Said she tended to overthink things. Said she felt more comfortable talking to him than she'd expected. All of it was vague enough to be universal, the kind of thing anyone might say, but specific enough to feel intimate. Then, about 3 days ago, she'd suggested meeting. Friday night. The Lantern. The booth near the window, because it's the coziest spot and I always sit there. I always sit there. That's what she said. And she was right. I did. Val and I had been coming to the Lantern for over a year, and we always grabbed the booth near the front window because it was the only one with enough room for bags and coats. Whoever wrote those messages knew that, knew my habits, knew where I'd be sitting on a Friday night if Val dragged me out. "Can I screenshot this?" I asked. Derek nodded. He looked shaken. Not scared, more like embarrassed and confused and unsure what to do with his hands. I took photos of the profile, the messages, the timestamps. Then I handed his phone back and sat there trying to breathe normally while the rain streaked the window behind me and the bar carried on like nothing was wrong. Val came back from the pool table around that time. She looked at Derek, looked at me, and said, "Who's this?" I told her. All of it. Right there in the booth, with Derek filling in his side. Val's face went through about 5 stages. Amused, confused, concerned, angry, and then something quiet and focused that I recognized as her problem-solving mode. "Report the profile," she said immediately. "Right now." Derek reported it from his phone while we watched. Hinge has a process. You flag it, select a reason, submit. He chose fake profile and using someone else's photos. The app said they'd review it within 48 hours. It felt like putting a Band-Aid on a broken window. "How did they get your photos?" Val asked. "Instagram, probably. My account's public." I felt stupid saying it. I'd never thought about it. Who looks at a public Instagram and thinks someone's going to build a fake person out of this? But there it was. The rooftop photo was on my grid. The selfie with the bakery window was on my grid. The birthday dinner candid. Actually, that one wasn't. Val had taken it and sent it to me in a group chat. I'd never posted it anywhere. That stopped me cold. "Val, the birthday dinner photo. Did you post that anywhere?" She thought about it. "I put it on my story, months ago. It would have expired." "Did anyone screenshot it? Save it?" "I don't know. It was on my story for 24 hours. Anyone who follows me could have seen it. Anyone who follows Val." That was a different list than anyone who follows me. There was overlap, sure, mutual friends, co-workers, classmates. But Val had people on her followers list that I didn't know. People from her office, from her gym, from her life before we met. And one of those people, or someone adjacent to them, had saved that photo and put it on a fake dating profile under the name Alina. Derek left around 11. He apologized 3 times, gave me his number in case I needed him for a police report, and walked out into the rain looking like someone who'd just had the strangest night of his life. I felt bad for him. He hadn't done anything wrong. He'd just swiped right on a ghost wearing my face. Val drove me home. Neither of us said much. The rain was coming down in sheets, turning the windshield into a blur between wiper strokes. I sat in the passenger seat and scrolled through my own Instagram, looking at every photo through new eyes. Not as memories, but as material. Things someone could take, things someone could use. When we got to my building, I sat in the car for a minute. "The booth," I said. Val looked at me. She told him to go to the booth by the window, our booth, on a Friday night. I turned to face her. Val, she knew I'd be there. She didn't just steal my photos and make a fake profile. She sent someone to where I was going to be, sitting exactly where I was going to sit. This wasn't catfishing. This was a setup. Val didn't argue. She didn't try to rationalize it. She just said, "You're staying at my place tonight." I said no, told her I'd be fine. Went upstairs, locked the door, checked every window, stood in my dark apartment and looked at the bakery sign glowing below my window. The same sign visible in that selfie, the one that told anyone who saw it exactly which building I lived in and exactly which window was mine. I closed the blinds for the first time since I'd moved in. I reported the profile to Hinge myself the next morning. Created a temporary account just to find it, which felt like putting on someone else's skin. I hated every second of it. It took me about 15 minutes of scrolling to find Alina. There she was. My face, my photos, my life repackaged under a name I'd never heard. The profile was still active. Derek's report hadn't done anything yet. And now that I was looking at it from the other side, I noticed things he wouldn't have caught. The bio mentioned documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries. It mentioned Thai food. There's a Thai place 2 blocks from my apartment that I order from twice a week. Long walks that turn into adventures. I walk everywhere. I don't have a car. Walking is how I get through my days. Whoever built this profile didn't just steal my photos. They studied me, took the details of my actual life and wove them into a character. Alina wasn't random. Alina was me. Slightly fictionalized, gently adjusted, but rooted in real information about a real person. My tastes, my habits, my neighborhood. I screenshotted everything, every photo, every prompt answer, every detail, and then reported it. Selected impersonation, wrote a paragraph explaining the situation, submitted it. Then I deleted the temporary account and took a shower that lasted 40 minutes because I couldn't stop feeling like something was on my skin. That afternoon I went to the police. Same feeling as every other person in these stories who walks into a station knowing they won't be taken seriously. I sat across from an officer and explained it. The profile, the photos, the name, Derek, the bar, the booth. He typed it up. Asked if I'd been threatened. I said no. Asked if I knew who might have done it. I said no. He said they'd documented and that I should continue reporting through the app's own channels. "Is there anything else you can do?" I asked. "At this point, it's a platform issue," he said. "If there's harassment or threats, that changes things. But a fake dating profile, technically no crime's been committed against you that we can act on right now." I walked out into the rain and stood on the sidewalk and thought about how someone had constructed a version of me, sent a man to find me in a bar, and the law considered that a platform issue. Monday came. I went to work at the copy shop, tried to focus, couldn't. Around noon, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, is this Alina? I think we matched on Hinge. You gave me your number on the app, but I wanted to double-check this is you." I stared at it, read it 3 times, then typed back, "This isn't Alina. Who is this?" "Oh, sorry. My name's Ryan. I matched with someone named Alina on Hinge, and she gave me this number. Must be a wrong number." It wasn't a wrong number. It was my number, my real phone number. The profile, or whoever was running it, had given my actual phone number to a stranger on a dating app. I called Val. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. "Someone texted me," I said. "A guy named Ryan. He matched with Alina on the app, and she gave him my phone number." Silence. Then, "Jules, your phone number isn't on Instagram." She was right. I'd never posted it, never put it in a bio or a public profile. My phone number was in my contacts, in my school records, on my work paperwork, and in the phones of people I'd personally given it to. That's it. "She has your number," Val said. "That means she either knows you or she has access to something she shouldn't." I went through my phone that night like I was defusing a bomb. Checked every app, every permission, every login. Changed my passwords, all of them, every account, one by one. Turned on 2-factor authentication for anything that allowed it. Checked my email for unfamiliar logins. Nothing looked wrong. No breaches, no unauthorized access, no strange activity. But someone had my phone number. Someone who was handing it out to men on dating apps, along with my face and a name that wasn't mine. 2 more texts came that week. Different guys, same situation. "Hey, is this Alina?" One of them was polite, apologized when I said wrong number. The other was less polite. He said Alina had agreed to meet up and then ghosted him, and he wanted to know why. He called me 3 times before I blocked the number. I started carrying my phone face down so I wouldn't see the notifications come in. Every buzz made my chest tighten. Every unknown number was a trap door. Thursday night I was in my apartment, blinds drawn, trying to study for an exam I couldn't focus on. The rain was steady against the windows, the kind that doesn't let up, that turns the whole world into a low, constant hiss. I had my textbook open and my notes spread across the bed, and I wasn't absorbing a single word. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't look. Almost. "Hey, Alina, it's Marcus. I'm outside your building, the one above the bakery, right? Buzz me in." My body went cold. Not slowly, all at once, like someone had opened a valve and drained every degree of warmth from my blood. I read it again, and again. He was outside, right now. Someone Alina had been talking to was standing outside my building, at my door, because the profile, or the person behind it, had given him my address. I turned off every light in the apartment, crawled to the window on my hands and knees like that would somehow make me invisible, peeled the blinds apart with 2 fingers, and looked down at the street. A man was standing under the bakery awning, looking up at my window, phone in his hand. Rain soaking his jacket, waiting to be let in, waiting for me. I called 911 from the floor of my apartment, whispered my address into the phone like he could hear me through the walls. Told the dispatcher there was a man outside my building who'd been sent there by someone impersonating me online. She asked if he'd threatened me. I said he was standing at my door at 10 p.m. because a stranger gave him my address. I didn't know what that was, if not a threat. She said officers were on the way. I stayed on the line, stayed on the floor, listened to the rain and the muffled sound of the bakery sign buzzing below me, and the faint, horrible sound of the man shifting his weight on the wet sidewalk. My phone buzzed again while I was still on with the dispatcher. "Alina, you there?" "It's cold, lol." I didn't respond. Pressed the phone tighter against my ear and waited. 4 minutes, maybe 5. Then I heard a siren, distant at first, then closer, then right outside. I crawled back to the window and looked down. A patrol car had pulled up. 2 officers got out. The man, Marcus, stepped back from the door, hands up, confused. They talked. He showed them his phone, pointed up at my window. One of the officers looked up. I pulled back from the blinds. They came to my door about 10 minutes later. I let them in. The apartment was dark. I hadn't turned the lights back on, and one of them asked if I was okay. I said I didn't know. I showed them everything, the screenshots of the profile, the texts from Ryan and the others, the message from Marcus, all of it laid out on my phone like evidence at a crime scene. One officer took notes while the other asked questions. Had I met Marcus before? No. Did I know who was behind the profile? No. Had I been stalked or threatened by anyone recently? Number. Had I had any conflicts, any breakups, any disputes that might explain this? No. I didn't have answers for any of it. I was a college student who worked at a copy shop and watched documentaries alone on Friday nights, and someone had turned me into bait. They told me Marcus had been cooperative. He was genuinely shocked, thought he'd been talking to a real person, had no idea it was a stolen identity. He'd shown them the conversation on the app. Alina had given him the address willingly, told him to come by around 10, said she'd buzz him up. He was just a guy who thought he was meeting someone he'd been chatting with for a week. The officer said they'd file a report, said I should continue documenting everything, said I could pursue a restraining order if the harassment continued. But since the harasser was unknown, it would be difficult to enforce. He gave me the report number and a card and told me to call if anyone else showed up. After they left, I sat on my bed in the dark and called Val. It was almost midnight. She answered on the second ring. "Someone came to my apartment," I said. "I'm coming to get you." "Val." "I'm already putting on shoes." She picked me up 20 minutes later. I brought a bag with clothes, my laptop, my charger, left the lights off, locked the door. Walked down the stairs fast, past the bakery, past the spot where Marcus had been standing. The pavement was wet and the awning was still dripping, and I could see where his shoes had scuffed the concrete. I stayed at Val's that night. Didn't sleep. Sat in a living room with my phone in my hands, refreshing the Hinge report status, checking for new texts, scrolling through my Instagram followers list, looking for anyone I didn't recognize. There were dozens. I had a public account with about 800 followers, most of them friends, classmates, acquaintances. But there were plenty I couldn't place. Usernames I'd accepted without thinking, faces I didn't know. Any one of them could have been saving my photos for months. The next morning I made my Instagram private. Went through my followers one by one and removed anyone I couldn't identify with certainty. 86 accounts. Gone. Then I went through my following list and removed anyone I didn't personally know. It felt like ripping off pieces of a web that had been spun around me while I wasn't looking. Around noon, I got a notification from Hinge. The Alina profile had been removed for violating community guidelines. I should have felt relieved. I didn't. Because removing a profile doesn't remove the person behind it. They still had my photos. They still had my phone number. They still had my address. A deleted profile was just a door closing. It didn't mean they weren't standing on the other side of it. That afternoon, Val and I went through the screenshots of Alina's messages to Derek one more time. We'd been focused on the content, what she said, what she knew. But this time Val noticed something I'd missed, the message timestamps. Alina had messaged Derek almost exclusively between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., every single night. consistent, like a shift. And the response times were fast, 2-3 minutes between messages, sometimes less. Whoever was running this profile wasn't doing it casually. They were sitting there, engaged, typing in real time, maintaining a conversation as another person for hours, every night, for 2 weeks. Val pointed at the screen. This isn't someone messing around. This is someone with a project. I looked at the timestamps. 10:14 p.m., 10:17 p.m., 11:02 p.m., 11:04 p.m., 12:33 a.m., 12:35 a.m. Hour after hour, night after night, someone sat in the dark and pretended to be me. And the worst part, the part that made me feel like the walls of Val's apartment were slowly leaning inward, was that while Alina was sending Derek messages at midnight, I was asleep. In my apartment, above the bakery, with the blinds open and the window glowing and my silhouette probably visible from the street. She was talking to men about being me at the exact hours when someone standing outside could look up and watch the real thing. I didn't go back to the apartment for 6 days. Val let me stay without asking how long. She cleared a drawer for me, gave me a key, told me to stop apologizing. I went to work. I went to class. I moved through my days like someone walking on a frozen lake, carefully, quietly, waiting for the crack. The texts from strangers slowed down after the profile was removed. 2 more came in over the next week, guys who'd gotten my number before the account was taken down and were just now getting around to reaching out. I told both of them the same thing. Wrong number. The person you were talking to doesn't exist. One of them said, "That's messed up," and left it alone. The other asked if I wanted to grab coffee anyway. I blocked him. But here's the thing about deleted profiles. They can come back. Different name, same photos. Different app, same face. I started checking. Every few days I'd create a burner account on Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, and search for my own photos. I'd scroll for half an hour, sometimes longer, scanning faces with the specific nausea that comes from looking for yourself where you shouldn't be. 2 weeks after the first profile was taken down, I found another one. Different app this time, Bumble. Different name, Nadia, 24. Same photos. My rooftop picture, my birthday dinner candid, and a new one I hadn't seen on the first profile. It was a photo of me walking down Elliston Street, taken from behind. I was wearing my backpack, headphones in, coat zipped up. You couldn't see my face, but I recognized my own posture, my own bag, the way I hold my shoulders when I'm walking fast in the cold. Someone had followed me down my own street and photographed me without my knowledge. And then they'd put it on a dating profile for strangers to swipe on. I reported it immediately. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up. Val drove me to the police station that afternoon. I brought everything, the new profile, the old screenshots, the texts, Derek's number, the report number from before. A different officer this time, a woman who actually leaned forward when I talked. She looked at the photo of me from behind on Elliston, and her expression changed. "This was taken in person," she said, not a question. "Yes." "And you didn't know?" "No." She was quiet for a moment. Then she told me something I didn't expect. There had been 2 other reports in the past year. Different women, same pattern. Fake dating profiles using stolen photos, real phone numbers given to matches, men directed to the victim's actual locations. Both cases had gone cold, no suspect identified. But the method was identical, the same careful construction, the same slow escalation, the same use of the profiles not just to catfish, but to funnel strangers toward a specific, real person. "This isn't about the men," the officer said. "The men are delivery systems. Whoever's doing this is using them to get to you, to put pressure on you, to make you feel watched." I already felt watched. I'd felt watched since Derek sat down across from me at the lantern and said my face looked different in person. The officer said they'd escalate the report, gave me information about a victim's advocate, recommended I look into changing my phone number, which I did that week. She also said something I think about constantly. The photo from behind means they were close enough to touch you, and you had no idea. I changed my number, deleted every social media account I had, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. Gone. Moved out of the apartment above the bakery at the end of the month. Val helped me find a new place, a shared house with 3 other women on the west side. No ground floor windows, no identifying landmarks visible from the street. I told my new roommates a simplified version of what happened. They didn't ask many questions. One of them had been stalked in college. She just nodded and said, "I'm glad you're here." The Bumble profile was taken down within a week. I kept checking for new ones, obsessively at first, then weekly, then monthly. I haven't found another one. Not yet. Derek texted me once, about a month after everything happened. Said he hoped I was doing okay. Said the whole thing had shaken him up more than he expected. Said he'd started asking matches to video call before meeting in person, just to make sure they were real. I told him that was smart. Told him I was managing. Didn't tell him I'd moved, changed my number, scrubbed myself from the internet. Didn't tell him that some mornings I stand at my new bedroom window and scan the street below for anyone holding a phone at the wrong angle. The police never found who did it. The 2 other cases stayed cold, too. 3 women, same city, same method, no arrests. The officer who'd helped me called once, a few months later, to tell me there were no updates. She sounded frustrated. I told her I appreciated her honesty. I think about Alina sometimes. Not as a person, I know she wasn't real, but as a construction. Someone sat down and decided what I would be like if I were someone else. Took my face and gave it a different name and a fake history and a personality assembled from fragments of my real one, and then released it into the world to interact with people on my behalf. Men fell for her, liked her, made plans with her, showed up at my door for her. And the whole time she was just me, refracted through someone else's obsession, performing a version of my life for an audience I never consented to. I don't know who built her. I don't know if they're still watching me. I don't know if they've moved on to someone else or if they're just waiting, patient, quiet, studying my new street the way they studied Elliston, saving new photos, picking a new name. The thing that haunts me most isn't the profile or the texts, or Marcus standing in the rain outside my building. It's the photo from behind. Me, walking down my own street, headphones in, completely unaware. Not posed, not stolen from the internet. Taken, in person, by someone close enough to reach out and tap me on the shoulder. They didn't. I keep wondering why.